Chapter 691 Sneak Attack. Zhou Zhou's Confidence. Zhou Zhou looked at the remaining fog monsters of the Scarlet Legion and felt that it was a pity. His insight defection could only be used on the same enemy faction once a day. If only he could use the second insight defection on these fog monsters. Then he could have at least 20 million fog monster subordinates. However, the situation in front of him was not bad. Zhou Zhou was not greedy. By everyone. Zhou Zhou looked at the countless fog monsters outside the barrier and smiled. Then, he planned to use spatial teleportation to escape. He had extremely high spatial talent to begin with, and he often used this skill. With the enhancement of his extremely high comprehension ability, he had already comprehended this law skill to the law skill level. Even though it was only an epic tier other law skill, it was equivalent to the law skill that Feng Luo had comprehended back then, One Blade Ultimate. However, it was more than enough in the face of the current situation. At this moment, a dark purple flying arrow that emitted the aura of a high-tier deity level instantly passed through space and shot at the King of the Sky's Guardian barrier. Rumble. In the blink of an eye. The guardian barrier that protected Zhou Zhou, the King of the Sky, exploded on the spot. A large amount of Wind Stats Divine Power and Abyss Divine Power contained in it caused a terrifying explosion under the conflict. Rumble. An azure and dark purple explosion ripple instantly spread out with the barrier as the center. Wherever it passed, countless fog monsters below the legendary tier could not even let out a scream before they were instantly killed. Even their corpses were not left behind. Even the Scarlet God spirits who rushed over and were accidentally affected suffered some serious injuries when they were caught off guard. High up in the sky, a void spirit demon god spirit holding a dark blue ferocious bow slowly lowered its bow. The arrow just now was released by him. And he was one of the only two high-tier deity levels in the refined flame Scarlet Legion. I didn't expect the little worm to run over. And he's the king of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. What's this guy thinking? As the sovereign of a country and the favored one of the supreme will, you actually took a risk and ran to the most dangerous place on the battlefield. He shook his head. He did not understand. Could it be that this king of the Blazing Sun had walked too smoothly and was arrogant? Had he already begun to look down on god spirits like them? He did not think too much about it, let alone mind it. This was because he already knew that Zhou Zhou was an epic tier intermediate grade human through his aura. While the aura on his body was a little strange, the strength could not be faked. In his heart, the other party would definitely die with the arrows of attacks just now. Now that I've killed the King of the Blazing Sun, the Crimson Overlord should reward me, right? He began to fantasize. According to the Crimson Overlord's past style, it would definitely be rewarded with something for dealing a huge blow to the Supreme Will and fighting for the Crimson Overlord's face. As he thought, he looked at the center of the explosion where the King of the Blazing Sun was. As time passed, the divine power violent storm in the center of the explosion gradually dissipated, revealing the scene inside. And then, his pupils constricted slightly. That was because he actually didn't see the remains of the King of the Blazing Sun's corpse inside. That's impossible. I clearly restrained my strength just now. That Abyss Demon arrow could at most break through the Wind Stats Divine Power protective barrier protecting him and kill him. It's impossible to kill him until there's not a trace of him left. Thinking of this, he immediately flew to the center of the explosion. After he carefully observed it for a few seconds, his expression turned ugly. Spatial law skill, I actually let him escape. In the sky, on a galaxy spaceship. Zhou Zhou sat calmly in the captain's exclusive seat and recalled the scene just now. That guy should be at least a high-tier deity-level intermediate grade Scarlet God Spirit. Otherwise, it would be impossible to directly break through my Sky King's Guardian. It's indeed difficult to stop so many Scarlet God Spirits with just Heras and Zhe Wu. Zhou Zhou shook his head. The reason why he boldly appeared in front of so many scarlet fog monsters and even boldly exposed his identity to attract the hatred of the refined flame Scarlet Legion was because other than a large pile of divine artifacts and other god-tier treasures, there was another very important reason. He now had a total of 9 resurrections with the professional ability of the Lord of the End. With so many resurrections, Zhou Zhou naturally had the capital to do whatever he wanted. Zhou Zhou even wanted to take the initiative to die and see what this resurrection effect was like. After all, if he revived with the power of the final nirvana, his strength would also increase greatly. Ever since he entered the epic tier, Zhou Zhou felt that it was increasingly difficult to increase his strength. There were at least 4 to 5 million fog monsters that had just died from the earthquake. However, Zhou Zhou felt that the promotion energy provided by these 4 to 5 million fog monsters only increased his epic tier intermediate grade strength by about 2 to 3 levels. The promotion energy provided by these 4 to 5 million fog monsters only increased his epic tier intermediate grade strength by about 2 to 3 levels. Not to mention legendary tier and even god spirits. Therefore, if the power of the final nirvana could really increase his strength, he did not mind improving himself through death. It was just a pity. Even if it was a high-tier deity-level existence. It did not force him to consume even one resurrection. Your Majesty. Lord Heras and Lord Zhe Wu are back. They are walking towards the captain's room. At this moment. When Ya's voice sounded. Zhou Zhou nodded. Soon, the two gods walked over. Heras' face was filled with excitement and a hint of depression. Zhe Wu was also excited, but other than excitement, he was also a little worried. Are you two injured? Zhou Zhou asked with concern. With this divine artifact, even if I can't defeat it, it's easy for me to not be injured. Even though I've been suppressing that guy called Gerard, he's indeed an opponent I can fight. Heras was the first to speak. Then, he said helplessly, however, a group of scarlet god spirits rushed over later on. There was also another high-tier deity-level god spirit who interfered. Otherwise, I would have definitely decided a victor with he today. I fought 2 mid-tier deity levels and 2 low-tier deity levels alone with my divine artifacts. Zhe Wu said solemnly, however, this fight of Scarlet Empire can't be underestimated. Even though we far exceed the other party in terms of low-level combat strength, I'm afraid it's very difficult to compare to the other party in terms of high-end combat strength at the god spirit level. This battle is not easy to fight. Zhou Zhou nodded. Then, he smiled and said. You're right. However, if it really comes to the most dangerous moment, I'll ask the Elven Empire for help. With the Elven Empire's strength, it will definitely not be a problem to defeat this flame-refining Scarlet Army. Zhe Wu was about to ask why he felt that he would definitely be able to invite the experts of the Elven Empire to help him resolve the current predicament. However, he quickly thought of Zhou Zhou's unfathomable wealth. That's true. With the divine artifact resources this guy has, even if he casually takes out a low-tier deity-level elementary-grade divine artifact, it should be enough for the experts of the Elven Empire to take action and resolve the current crisis for him. After all, even the Elven Empire lacks divine artifacts. It's not difficult to defeat an ordinary Empire-level Scarlet Legion. Moreover, the Elven Empire seems to have heard rumors that Zhou Zhou has many divine artifacts recently. At this moment, they're probably thinking about how to get the King of the Blazing Sun to gift them a few divine artifacts. If this King of the Blazing Sun really asks the Elven Empire will probably agree without thinking for the sake of a divine artifact. Zhe Wu thought to himself. He felt a little emotional. There was a proverb circulating in the Blazing Sun Kingdom from the King of the Blazing Sun. It was called Money Talks. From the looks of it, he could also allow God to drive under his command with a divine artifact. Chapter 692 Mystic Heaven Immortal Alliance. Zhou Zhou, Heras, and Zhe Wu chatted for a while. Then, Zhou Zhou prepared to leave. Please continue to monitor the flame-refining Scarlet Army and protect the 10 Apocalypse Satellites 9 in the sky. If a powerhouse of the flame-refining Scarlet Army wants to fly up and destroy the Destruction Apocalypse Satellite 9, please take the galaxy immediately to the orbit of the Apocalypse Satellite 9 and move them. Then, change to a new place to continue releasing them to deal damage. This is called guerrilla tactics in our hometown. Zhou Zhou smiled. Leave it to us. When the two gods heard this, they felt that it was not difficult and immediately agreed. Zhou Zhou nodded. Then, he took out a galaxy from his inner world after bidding farewell to the two gods. Then, he boarded the galaxy and flew in the direction of the ancient teleportation array that the mystic Heaven Lord had mentioned. On a plane about 50 million kilometers away from the blazing Sun Kingdom. There was a temporary military stronghold here. At this moment, a group of people was gathered in front of the entrance of the military stronghold. They were Wu Tu, Mai Luan, and the other generals of the army who had led their troops here in advance, as well as the nervous mystic Heaven Lord, his subordinates, and the members of the alliance. They were Wu Tu, Mai Luan, and the other generals of the army who had led their troops here in advance, as well as the nervous Lord of the mystic heaven, his subordinates, and the members of the alliance. It was as if he was a righteous cultivator who had lived in a Taoist sect for a long time. He was righteous and innocent and was willing to help others. Just his appearance gave people a good impression. Before Wu Tu and the others came, they had heard Zhou Zhou mention this person's aptitude and experience in the high continent. Now that he had seen him with his own eyes, he had to admit that he was indeed a chi practitioner seed that was filled with an immortal aura. But it's still far inferior to His Majesty. Wu Tu looked at the mystic Heaven Lord and muttered in his heart. If the mystic Heaven Lord was a chi practitioner seed, then he felt that His Majesty was a natural immortal king. The mystic Heaven Lord was far inferior in terms of temperament and appearance. It could be said that they were on two completely different levels. It was even much inferior to the most handsome youth in their territory, Xiao Xian. At the same time, the mystic Heaven Lord was also looking at Wu Tu and the others. The more he looked at them, the more he clicked his tongue. I've long heard that the subjects of the blazing Sun Kingdom are all outstanding looking. It's true from the looks of it. The mystic Heaven Lord sighed in his heart. Even though these people's appearances were not comparable to his, they could be considered outstanding among ordinary people. It made him want to join the blazing Sun Kingdom now. Not for any other reason. He just wanted to see the upper limit of his appearance. He turned to look at the higher-ups of the Mystic Heaven City and the Alliance master members of the Mystic Heaven Immortal Alliance. Then, he was speechless. Because he realized that at this moment, these people were looking at Wu Tu and the others with infatuated eyes. Even some people with stronger self-control could not help but look at Wu Tu and the others from time to time. All of you, restrain yourselves. You have to pay attention to the image of our Mystic Heaven Immortal Alliance outside. The Mystic Heaven Lord shouted secretly. It was too embarrassing. It was as if they had never seen handsome men and beautiful women before. Even though they had indeed never seen so many handsome men and beauties gathered together, at this moment. A huge shadow that covered the ground suddenly enveloped them. A series of exclamations suddenly came from the crowd. At the same time, they looked at the sky. The Mystic Heaven Lord was shocked. Then, he immediately reacted and turned around to look at the sky. He saw a huge spaceship that was as gorgeous and resplendent as the Milky Way. It quietly floated in the sky, as if it had been parked there. The huge spaceship even completely covered the sun, causing the plane below to be completely enveloped by the shadow of the galaxy spaceship. Right on the heels of that, a handsome man in a luxurious dragon robe flew out. As soon as he appeared, it was as if it was the only light source in the world, attracting everyone's attention. Is that a god? A female lord looked at Zhou Zhou infatuatedly. The others also looked similarly obsessed. Even the Mystic Heaven Lord, who was quite confident in his appearance, looked at Zhou Zhou in a daze. At the same time, Zhou Zhou looked down. When he saw Wu Tu and the others, he immediately turned into a golden light and flew down, arriving in front of everyone. "Greetings, Your Majesty," everyone said respectfully and fanatically. Zhou Zhou nodded and looked at the Mystic Heaven Lord and the others. "You're the Mystic Heaven Lord, right?" He walked in front of the Mystic Heaven Lord and suddenly smiled. "He's even more handsome than in the video," he praised. The Mystic Heaven Lord came back to his senses. "It's not as good as what if it's not as good as Your Majesty." The Mystic Heaven Lord lowered his head with a flushed face, feeling extremely embarrassed for his narcissism in the past. In front of such people with such peerless celestial appearance, how did he dare to say that he was the most handsome in the world in the past? Zhou Zhou smiled and did not harp on this topic. "You're from Mystic Heaven City and the Mystic Heaven Immortal Alliance, right? Nice to meet you. I'm the King of the Blazing Sun of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Everyone can call me the Lord of the Blazing Sun." He looked at the people behind the Mystic Heaven Lord and greeted them. When everyone saw this, only then did he come back to his senses and hurriedly replied to Zhou Zhou. After a few simple words, Zhou Zhou said, "There's no time to lose. Let's deal with the Dark Martial Alliance first." "Okay. Let's set off now." The Mystic Heaven Lord and the others immediately perked up, their expressions filled with excitement. Some people even had rich aggro in their eyes. Their Mystic Heaven Immortal Alliance had been fighting the Dark Martial Alliance for so long that a portion of them had long developed a blood feud. After that, everyone did not waste any more time and directly entered this military stronghold. Then, they used the ancient teleportation array here to head to the headquarters of the Mystic Heaven Immortal Alliance. Mystic Heaven Immortal Alliance Headquarters Base. When Zhou Zhou and the others arrived, he swept his gaze and saw the architectural style of the Mystic Heaven Immortal Alliance. He could not help but say in surprise, "The architectural style here is not bad." The architectural style of the Mystic Heaven Immortal Alliance was clearly modeled after ancient buildings. Pavilions, pond pavilions, carved beams, and painted buildings could be seen everywhere. There were fake mountains, strange rocks, flower beds, and potted plants, decorated with vines and green bamboo. At the same time, it also had a rich xianxia factor. For example, Zhou Zhou had seen immortal cranes riding the wind just now. On the backs of the immortal cranes were chi practitioners who were dressed like immortals. Other than that, Zhou Zhou also acutely realized that there seemed to be some array formation here that was constantly gathering the promotion energy of the world towards this city. Even though he could not tell anything in the short term, as time passed, as long as nothing unexpected happened here, this place would sooner or later evolve into a blessed land. "It's a little like a weakened version of the Essence Spirit Array," Zhou Zhou thought to himself. "As long as Your Majesty likes it. I specially hired an architect from the Black Heaven sect to design this. Therefore, the architectural style is more inclined to the preferences of the Qi practitioners." The Mystic Heaven Lord said politely. Zhou Zhou nodded. Then, they first came to a reception room. After chatting for a while, the Mystic Heaven Lord began to introduce the Dark Martial Lord to Zhou Zhou. Chapter 693 The Resurrected Sun Extermination Association, 1. After the Dark Martial Lord found out that His Majesty was going to attack them, he has been gathering the soldiers of the Lords under the Dark Martial Alliance. Just now, the information part of our Mystic Heaven Immortal Alliance tells me that the Dark Martial Lord has gathered about 4,500 Lord soldiers. His total military strength has already reached about 8 million. It said that he also paid a huge price to hire a few experts from the kingdom that hired him. However, they did a good job of keeping it a secret. Our intelligence personnel didn't get any information about it. The Mystic Heaven Lord said with a solemn expression. This Dark Martial Lord was clearly frightened by the reputation of the King of the Blazing Sun. In the past, he did not have the ability to gather so many soldiers. Now, it was obvious that he had the thought that he would probably die if he did not succeed. That was why he had tried his best to gather so many people. Zhou Zhou nodded casually. An expert? No matter how strong an expert was, they would still be from a kingdom-level lord faction. Unless a true god tier or even stronger descend. Otherwise, Zhou Zhou would not be worried that there would be danger on this trip. The mystic heaven lord heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Zhou Zhou's expression did not change. Then, joy appeared on his face. As expected of the strongest lord of all races who could defeat the kingdom's forces at this stage. This confidence was really enviable and desirable. When he thought about how he had also hitched a ride on the King of the Blazing Sun's ship, the thoughts in the depths of his heart that were subservient to others immediately dissipated. If I work hard alone and dig out my potential and my lord talent to the extreme, I'm afraid I won't be able to reach the heights of the King of the Blazing Sun in the future. I might not even be able to reach the heights of the spiritual medicine lord under his command. But if I follow the King of the Blazing Sun, not only can I greatly guarantee my safety at this stage, but in the future, with the resources he has, as long as I assist him with all my might and not betray him, he will definitely support me with all his might, allowing me to easily reach the limit of my potential. It won't even be difficult for me to surpass the limit of my potential. If that's the case, what's the big deal about submitting to him? The mystic heaven lord thought. Just as a certain internet celebrity on Earth said. On the street, I'm driving a Mercedes-Benz, and the other party is driving a little electric scooter. You're talking about dignity with me? How good was the King of the Blazing Sun to his subordinates? This could be seen from the group of Star Alliance masters who flaunted on the World Channel every day how much benefits they had enjoyed and how much their strength had increased after joining the Star Alliance. They were really showing off. It was not just talk. They even posted videos and screenshots every day. Some flashy lords even broadcasted the war scenes they experienced sometimes. These could not be faked. Therefore, many lords of the Cerulean planet hoped to join the Star Alliance and have a winning career. There was a good saying. Why work hard to carry others when there was someone to carry him? This was the thought of many lords who yearned to join the Star Alliance. There was only one lord of all races after all. Many lords knew their limits and knew that they could not fight for the position of lord of all races in the hands of so many abnormal lords. Since that was the case, why fight to the death? There was more than one choice in life. Therefore, many of them chose to rely on powerful lords. If they exclude the lords of the people of foreign races, the Lord of the Blazing Sun was undoubtedly the Lord of the Blazing Sun with the greatest potential from the Cerulean planet. The Dragon Lady Lord, the Undead Lord, and the other top lords were very proud at the beginning. They even wanted to fight for the position of the Lord of all races. However, the Lord of the Blazing Sun appeared first and came first in the Novice Lord test. Later on the Lord battlefield of all races and in the competition with the lords of the people of foreign races, they realized the difference in strength and foundation between them and the lords of powerful race civilizations. After that, they learned that Zhou Zhou had suppressed the lords of all races and obtained the title of the strongest lord of all races. In the end, they learned of the existence of the Star Alliance. These things changed their original thought step by step. Until now, they could already willingly choose to join the King of the Blazing Sun. Speaking of which, how many lords does the Dark Martial Alliance have? Zhou Zhou asked. There are about 500,000 lord members of the Cerulean planet in the Dark Martial Alliance. However, 99% of the lords are widely distributed in various regions of the High Continent. They can't send troops to help the Dark Martial Alliance when they need them. Not everyone can have an expedition spaceship like your Majesty. Even if we want to build an ultra-long-distance teleportation array, we have to have that technology. Most of these lords who joined only want to wear the identity of a member of the Lord Alliance and usually add the Lord Alliance to the chat group. At this point, the mystic Heaven Lord could not help but smile bitterly. Wasn't his mystic Heaven Immortal Alliance the same? In fact, due to the traffic restrictions, most of the Lord Alliance of the Cerulean Planet Lords experienced the same problem. There was no solution now. Therefore, Lord Alliances like the Star Alliance, where all the Lords in the Alliance could communicate and cooperate in reality, were envied by many Lord Alliances even though there were very few of them. However, when the Dark Martial Lord was active in the Myriad Races Lord battlefield back then, he bought more than 20 Master Servant subject territory contracts and contracted more than 20 Lords to become his subordinate territory. The other party used the teleportation array given by the Master Servant territory contract and relied on these 20-odd Lords of subordinate territory to contact more than 10,000 Cerulean Planet Lords in reality. Most of these 8 million soldiers came from them. The mystic Heaven Lord said. Zhou did not say anything. Actually, he could do this too. He could even contact dozens or even hundreds of times more Lords of the Cerulean Planet. He had hundreds of Master Servant territory contract Lords under his command after all. However, he had no intention of continuing to recruit Lords of the Cerulean Planet ever since he did not have the Master Servant territory contract. Therefore, he had never done this. Ever since the Lord members of the Dark Martial Alliance found out that the Dark Martial Lord wanted to deal with your Majesty, many Lords have already left the Dark Martial Alliance. The Lords who still dare to stay in the Black Martial Alliance and are willing to work for the Black Martial Lord are either threatened by the Black Martial Lord in reality, have a close benefit relationship with the Black Martial Lord, or are hostile to your Majesty. The mystic Heaven Lord said. Zhou nodded. Then, everyone chatted for a while. Then, Zhou stood up and looked at everyone in the meeting room. There's no time to lose. Let's go to Black Martial City. He said. Yes. Everyone stood up and replied. Black Martial City. The Black Martial Lord was sitting on the sofa in his room and looking at the virtual screen in front of him. On the virtual screen, a group chat was displayed. The name of this group chat was the Sun Extermination Association. A long time ago, the Sun Extermination Association had disappeared after the leaders who founded it were destroyed by Zhou. For some reason, it actually resurrected. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 690 for the Resurrected Sun Extermination Association, 2. At this moment, the Black Martial Lord looked at the content of the chat group and occasionally typed. Second Lord of the Blazing Sun, how's the preparation going? Our Dark Warrior hero. Black Martial Lord, I've already gathered more than 56 million soldiers of the Black Martial Alliance. This is already the limit of what I can gather. Dark Martial Lord, in addition, I spent a third of the wealth of the Dark Martial Alliance and invited 3 epic tier experts from the Roland Kingdom to help. Black Martial Lord, this is the first time I've grasped so much power. With my current strength, I should be able to defeat the King of the Blazing Sun, right? Evil Dragon Lord, more than 8 million soldiers and 3 epic tier experts. Good Lord. If I had your strength, I would have directly attacked the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Lord of Water Chestnut Flower, don't be careless. We might have 8 million people but we might not be able to win against the Lord of the Blazing Sun even if we have the upper hand in numbers. We've gathered a lot of information about the King of the Blazing Sun's strength, that information is either incomplete or outdated from a long time ago. This information might no longer be trustworthy. Second Lord of the Blazing Sun, that's right. From the fact that the King of the Blazing Sun can casually defeat an intermediate kingdom while being a beginner kingdom, his military strength should be at least 10 million. There should be more than 3 extraordinary tier heroes. We can't underestimate him. Evil Dragon Lord, can you change your group nickname? Do you want to become the second Lord of the Blazing Sun so much that you've gone crazy? Second Lord of the Blazing Sun, how can a sparrow know the ambition of a swan? I will definitely replace him. Evil Dragon Lord, what swan? You're just a quail. How dare you call me a sparrow? Yen percent, and, Dark Martial Lord, why should I fight if you say so? Can you stop scolding and give me ideas? Black Martial Lord, don't forget, I'm now representing the Sun Extermination Association to face the Lord of the Blazing Sun. This is a battle that will make our reputation known. As long as we succeed in this battle, our Sun Extermination Association's reputation will be established again. In the future, we will have the confidence to gather more forces to overthrow the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Second Lord of the Blazing Sun, you don't have much serious ability, but you're quite capable of tyrannizing others. Second Lord of the Blazing Sun, in addition, forget about the Sun Extermination Association. The former Sun Extermination Association has already been destroyed. We only inherited the spirit of this organization and were led by Boss to rebuild the Sun Extermination Association. Lord of Water Chestnut Flowers, why do I feel that we're dealing with the Great Demon King? Seeing the words sent by the Dark Martial Lord, Evil Dragon Lord, with the King of the Blazing Sun's terrifying strength, he's no different from a Great Demon King. Evil Dragon Lord, where's Boss? At Boss. Boss, I already know what you're worried about. Lord Dark Martial, do as I say next. Dark Martial Lord, good. I'm all ears, Boss. Boss is still the most reliable. On the sofa. The Dark Martial Lord looked at the words sent by Boss in the group chat. He was first stunned, then surprise suddenly appeared in his eyes. That's right. Why didn't I think of this? I'm so stupid. He immediately stood up impatiently and walked out. After Zhou Zhou and the others boarded the galaxy, they immediately flew above Black Martial City. The Mystic Heaven Lord and the others were shocked to discover that they were already above Dark Martial Arts City before they could react. I just got on the spaceship. The Mystic Heaven Lord looked at the scene below and could not help but be dumbfounded. He boldly looked up at the spaceship he was in. The more he looked at it, the more shocked he was. The technological creation in front of him was like an extremely exquisite work of art, attracting his attention. Until Zhou Zhou patted his shoulder. Stop looking. If you like it, you can come to my territory to take a look at it any time in the future. No, they'll send you a normal spaceship in your territory later and let you drive it yourself for fun. He said. Since he had signed the contract book, he was considered half belonging to him even though it was not the master-servant territory contract. What was a normal spaceship worth? The Mystic Heaven Lord's eyes widened. Fuck. Is this how rich people greeted each other? He carefully touched the shoulder that was just patted. This touch was worth a spaceship. Then, he flew out of the galaxy with Zhou Zhou. As soon as he came out, the Mystic Heaven Lord realized that the 20 million soldiers Zhou Zhou had brought had already surrounded the entire Black Martial City. The sky, ground, and even the ground were already surrounded by soldiers. Not even a fly could fly out. There were quite a lot of transformation skills in this world after all. The soldiers had to be careful. The Mystic Heaven Lord looked at the 20 million soldiers and clicked his tongue at Zhou Zhou's strength. Then, he looked at Black Martial City below. As he watched, he suddenly felt a little strange. Why was this Black Martial City so quiet? What about the 8 million soldiers of the Dark Martial Lord? This Black Martial City is almost empty. Only some abandoned lonely old and young subjects are left. At this moment, Zhou Zhou seemed to have heard what he was thinking and said calmly. The Mystic Heaven Lord was stunned. A young general emitting an extraordinary tear aura flew up from below. Your Majesty. I've already brought people to check the entire Black Martial City. Other than 40,000 to 50,000 abandoned old people, children, and women, the Black Martial Lord, his trusted aides, and soldiers have all disappeared. Currently, we haven't discovered any arrangements like the spatial teleportation array. We haven't found out how the other party left yet. The young general said respectfully. Zhou Zhou frowned. This young general in front of him came from the original Aurora Kingdom and was best at searching and detection. With his investigation skills, he was ranked among the top in the entire Blazing Sun Kingdom, but he actually didn't discover how the other party left. "Did you find anything strange?" Zhou said. "We did discover some strange places." The young general was already prepared. "I smelled a faint stench of insects in this black martial city. However, I didn't find that worm after following the stench." "The stench of insects. Is there anything else?" "That's it." Zhou nodded. "Could it be that the Dark Martial Lord was scared away?" The Mystic Heaven Lord muttered. He felt that this was very likely. Was there anyone in the entire Cerulean planet who didn't know how terrifying the Lord of the Blazing Sun was? Even if the Dark Martial Lord had more than 8 million soldiers and the help of experts, the other party probably knew that they could not defeat the Lord of the Blazing Sun. Since that was the case, why would he stay to wait for death? He can't escape. Zhou said calmly. Then, he turned around and flew back into the galaxy. In the captain's room. After Zhou returned, he calmly sat on the throne and took out the Bodhi Supreme. "Bodhi Supreme, what's going on with the Dark Martial Lord?" Zhou asked directly. "Trying to escape." "Did you ask my Bodhi Supreme?" Chapter 695 The Mysterious Boss, didn't you hear what your subordinate said? The Bodhi Supreme's lazy voice sounded. "I believe he ran away, but I don't think it's that simple." Zhou said calmly. "You're right, but if you want to ask the specific reason, it will cost you one normal question that I can answer." Bodhi Supreme chuckled. "Sure." Zhou agreed without hesitation. It was just one normal question. He could easily create another one if he gave the other party more bloodline inheritances. "Refreshing, but it's a little troublesome for me to explain this to you in words. Take a look for yourself." As soon as Bodhi Supreme finished speaking, an illusory video appeared in front of Zhou. At this moment, the illusory video was playing the scene of the Dark Martial Lord looking at the chat group alone. Zhou raised his eyebrows, wanting to see what the Dark Martial Lord's chat group was discussing. In the end, this illusory video seemed to have heard his request and really enlarged the chat group panel according to his wishes. The Sun Extermination Association. Zhou was stunned. Wasn't this Lord organization of the Cerulean planet that targeted him destroyed by him? Why did it appear again? He did not ask. Instead, he continued to read patiently. Soon, he saw the words typed by, Second Lord of the Blazing Sun. So he's just using the Sun Extermination Association's name to deal with me. Zhou's expression was calm. He did not react much. In the past, when he was weak, he was not too interested in the Sun Extermination Association. He only used a little strength and destroyed it. Now, he could be said to have gained wings in front of the Lord of the Cerulean planet. Naturally, he was not afraid of the Sun Extermination Association. He continued to read. Soon, he exclaimed softly. "Who's this boss?" He continued reading. He quickly knew what this boss had instructed the Dark Martial Lord. "Boss, since you already have more than 8 million troops and have the help of experts, why do you care about the King of the Blazing Sun? Boss, I can provide you with an escape method and a territory relocation token to let you come to my universe. You have so many soldiers and experts. It won't be a problem for you to capture a kingdom-level lord faction alone. Boss, since that's the case, why don't you leave the high continent and find another way to develop?" Zhou raised his eyebrows slightly. This idea was indeed not bad. With more than 8 million soldiers and some high-end experts, they could indeed take down the lord faction of a beginner kingdom. Normal beginner kingdoms usually only had 2 to 3 million troops after all. Even if there were more white platinum tier experts in the Lord faction of the beginner kingdom, they could fill this difference in strength with human lives in front of so many soldiers. He continued to read. The Lord of the Black Martial Tower quickly raised his concerns. Dark Martial Lord, but I borrowed these soldiers from other lords. How can I explain this to them, boss? Then do you want me to tell you about stepping on your left foot or your right foot first? Dark Martial Lord, I don't dare. I understand. Don't worry, boss. Leave this matter to me. When we reach Boss World, I'll follow your lead in the future. Boss, please take care of me when the time comes. Boss, I won't mistreat you as long as you work hard for me. In the future, as long as you don't betray me and make more contributions, you might even have a chance to become a god. At that time, what kind of power beauties in the world can't you experience in front of you, a god spirit? Second Lord of the Blazing Sun, Envy. Lord of Water Chestnut Flowers, Envy. Dark Martial Lord, boss is right. Then in gathering people. Who exactly is this boss? He actually mastered the method to transmigrate to the universe at this stage. Zhou muttered. It had to be said. He was a little surprised by the methods of this person with the code name Boss. If the other party was really the lord of the Cerulean planet, Zhou had to admit that he might have underestimated the potential of the lord of the Cerulean planet. What's so strange about transmigrating into the universe? Just as Zhou was shocked by this person's methods, Bodhi Supreme said lazily again. As long as you ride the galaxy you have now into the dark universe and fly for a period of time, no more than a day and night, you will encounter the world membrane of another world. It sounds very difficult to open the world membrane, but it's nothing to the god spirits. With the divine power of the god spirits, even Vicky, who has just advanced to the god spirit level in your territory, they can easily open the world membrane and enter another world. If this person who claims to be the boss discovers a cross-border teleportation array to the high continent in his world, it will be even easier. As long as there's enough energy to activate the array, he can come to the high continent in the next second. The high continent is the core area of the great cosmos. There are many experts in the various small and medium-sized universes, continents, planets, cosmic mystic realms, god spirit worlds, and even low-dimensional worlds and demi-planes in the supreme universe. In order to return to the high continent, they have set up a fast world teleportation array to the high continent. It wouldn't be surprising if the other party was lucky enough to discover one. Zhou nodded and continued to watch the virtual video in front of him. After the Dark Martial Lord found out about Boss idea, he obtained the means to transmigrate into the universe and the territory relocation token, Boss, mentioned. With these two methods, the Dark Martial Lord was clearly much more confident. He gathered the 8 million soldiers and released a worm. This worm was like a toad and was half the height of a human. Its entire body was densely covered in special patterns that emitted silver light. Its eyes were like white crystals, and it actually had an exquisite and translucent beauty. This is the array-devouring goo toad. Zhou looked at the toad and searched through his bloodline inheritance for a long time before finding its origin. The array-devouring goo toad is a goo cultivator method among Qi practitioners. It's said that this goo worm can feed on array formations and swallow the array formations that exist in reality into its body, turning them into a part of its body. Then, it can use them as if it was using its intrinsic mystical ability. You can say that it's a natural array master. This method of refining arrays into the body is also a top array formation talent that many array masters in the immortal world can only hope to obtain. Because of this, once the array-devouring goo toad appears, it will cause a bloodbath in the immortal world. Over the long term, the refining method of this goo worm has long been forced to be lost after a long period of bloody competition. It actually appeared again. Could it be that this boss is a lord who walks the path of goo cultivation in the immortal world? Zhou guessed in surprise. Chapter 696 Gate of Restart. Insect Tribe Universe. Zhou asked Bodhi Supreme to pause the video. Then, he carefully observed the array-devouring goo toad in the video. As he watched, he suddenly felt that something was wrong with this array-devouring goo toad. Why does this array-devouring goo toad look a little deformed? Zhou frowned. According to the records of his bloodline inheritance, even though the array-devouring goo toad was a goo refined from a cultivation goo, it would also possess the unique beauty of a powerful goo worm. The array-devouring goo toad in front of him looked a little unnatural. It was as if. Could this be a goo worm pieced together? Zhou had a strange guess. At this moment, the video was still continuing. The array-devouring goo toad immediately opened its mouth after hearing the order from the Black Martial Lord to activate the cross-border teleportation passageway. Then, a silver-white super-large-scale array appeared. Then, this array formation quickly spread out with it as the center. In the blink of an eye, it covered the Dark Martial Lord and more than 8 million soldiers. They disappeared within a heartbeat and the video ended. Zhou pondered for a moment and asked Bodhi Supreme about the origins of this array-devouring goo toad. If you want to answer this question, you need to use up an official answer. Bodhi Supreme said leisurely. Why is it so expensive? Zhou was shocked. He had asked Bodhi Supreme about the path of his laws and had also obtained the Supreme Eye, a top-notch secret technique specially used to comprehend the Lord's laws. He had only used this once to officially resolve his doubts. Even though he had already officially answered Bodhi Supreme's doubts 5 times because of his Diamond Tier Lord talent, Zhou did not want to use it so casually. Because this matter concerns you. Moreover, the matter you want to investigate involves some lords with more potential. They might shine in the Lord of all Races competition in the future. If you obtain information about them from me and take action against them, it will be equivalent to affecting the competition for the Lord of all Races in the future. At this point, Bodhi Supreme's expression was solemn. I'm the dog of the Supreme Will. I don't dare to ruin his mood. Zhou, he took a deep breath and began to weigh whether he should use this opportunity. After thinking for a few seconds, he suddenly thought of something and a faint smile appeared on his face. I'm really getting more and more timid. No matter how strong the other party is, can he be stronger than the top lords of all races like the True Lord, the Great One Lord, and the God Shepherd Lord? Since I can tolerate these abnormal lords as my opponents, is there no room for a lord weaker than them to be my opponent? Moreover, this time, I wasted Bodhi Supreme's rare opportunity to resolve its doubts to kill an enemy with great potential. Even if we succeed in killing it, does it mean that such enemies won't appear again? In this competition that concerns the Lord of all Races. What I am not lacking of is countless lords with potential. If I kill one, can I kill all of them? Rather than thinking of killing an opponent who has yet to mature, why don't I think about how to improve myself? I want to establish my roots in the broken rock and constantly grow. Only then can I be at ease and not be afraid of any dangerous enemies. Zhou's eyes lit up. In his heart, at the very least, he had to encounter something as important as the Lord's law before it was worth using his precious answers. At the thought of this, Zhou immediately knew what he wanted. I want to know how to find the Dark Martial Lord safely. He asked. The Dark Martial Lord's method of moving freely at night was too important to him. If he had that Lord talent, it would be immeasurably useful to his future development. The most obvious and simple benefit. Even he could lead troops out at night. This is very simple. You only need one normal question, the Bodhi Supreme chuckled. Put it on the account first and he'll pay it back slowly in the future. Zhou said without thinking. Bodhi's laughter immediately disappeared. I wouldn't have let you go on credit if it wasn't because I know that you have so many inheritances in your mind. It criticized in its heart. However, it still told Zhou how to find him. It'll teach you a skill that can rely on the remaining power of spatial teleportation to temporarily open the spatial passageway again. After you master it, go to the place where the array-devouring goo toad left with its people. Then, use this method to open the cross-border teleportation passageway they left again. You can go to the place where the Dark Martial Lord arrived. But I have to remind you that the duration of the temporary fast world teleportation channel activated using this method is very short. Take heed, otherwise, you might be trapped there forever. Even though you have the galaxy, it's not omnipotent. There are places it can't reach. Bodhi Supreme warned seriously. I'll keep that in mind. Zhou Zhou nodded seriously. When Bodhi Supreme heard this, he taught Zhou Zhou a skill called the Gate of Restart. After he obtained this skill, he immediately asked Wu Tu to bring all the soldiers into the galaxy. Then, he put the galaxy into his internal world. Then, he came to the place where the array-devouring goo toad had disappeared. Zhou Zhou took a deep breath and activated the Gate of Restart. The next second, wisps of silver spatial power gradually appeared around Zhou Zhou before gradually forming a slightly transparent cross-border teleportation array. At this moment, Zhou Zhou could clearly feel that the incomplete spatial power in front of him could maintain this cross-border teleportation passageway for about half an hour through the Gate of Restart. Half an hour is enough. Zhou Zhou took a deep breath. Then, without any hesitation, he teleported to another world through this illusory cross-border teleportation array. In the insect tribe universe of the Zerg race. When Zhou Zhou arrived, he realized that he was on a desolate planet. He looked around and found only dead yellow sand. There was not even a breeze and it looked terrifyingly quiet. This is the universe where that boss is? Zhou Zhou looked at this new world curiously. At this moment, a line of text suddenly appeared in front of him. Prompt, welcome to the Zerg Lord Universe. F. Prompt, detected that you are a lord of all races from the High Continent. Do you want to temporarily enter the Cerulean planet's human race, insect race Lord World Channel? Prompt, after you enter the Cerulean planet's human race, insect race Lord World Channel, you can communicate with your lord. Prompt 2, you will automatically leave the Cerulean planet human race, Zerg Lord World Channel after you leave the Lord Universe, but you will retain the friends you have already added to in this Lord Universe. Zhou Zhou frowned. Chapter 697 The Insect Lord and the Dark Martial Lord, the Insect Race Lord Universe. And the Insect Race Lord World Channel of the Cerulean planet, Zhou Zhou was deep in thought. Could this be a Lord Universe that only Zerg Lords fought for supremacy? He thought for a moment and chose to settle in. Soon, a whole new world channel appeared in front of him. Zhou Zhou looked at it curiously. Bell Insect Lord, I just invaded a cloud race town today. This group of cloud race people taste soft and not delicious at all. Moreover, the energy obtained from their bodies can't create many subordinate Zergs. Instead, more than 2,000 of my Bell insect subordinates died in battle when I invaded. I've really suffered a fucking loss. Giant Beetle Lord, we're still invading an ordinary town. Our insect god has already begun to attack the third life planet. I, the giant beetle, am envious. Black Insect Lord, as a member of the Insect God Alliance, I have already accepted the genetic modification of the Insect God. I have already broken through the limit of the epic tier and have the potential to grow into a legendary tier Zerg. Ha ha ha. Min Insect Lord, hold on tight to the previous poster's thigh. These lords of the insect tribe universe, seems to be very different from our normal lords of all races. Zhou Zhou pondered. Moreover, Zhou Zhou realized from these short sentences that this insect god they were talking about seemed to have an extremely high status among them. It was even comparable to him in the Cerulean planet's human race world channel in the High Continent. Could it be the strongest lord here? Zhou Zhou did not think too much about it. He had more important things to do now. He took out the Bodhi Supreme and asked. Tell me the location of the Dark Martial Lord. The question he had just asked was to find the Dark Martial Lord safely. Therefore, this question was not considered a second question. He was brought to another planet, about 150 million kilometers away. After Bodhi Supreme finished speaking, it transformed into an interstellar map for him to see. After reading it, Zhou immediately took out the galaxy and boarded it. He flew towards the planet where the Black Martial Lord was according to the map given by the Bodhi Supreme. Planet Cologne. This was originally a modern technology planet. However, after the Insect Lord invaded, this place became a resource planet ruled by the insects. The people of Cologne here were controlled by the Zergs with a kind of Zerg called the cerebrate worm. They worked in the factory every day to produce some low-level resources for the Zergs. At this moment, the Dark Martial Lord and his 8 million soldiers were here. Boss, is this the planet you are asking me to manage? The Dark Martial Lord looked at the technological city scene that was like the cerulean planet in front of him with an extremely excited expression. Putting aside the benefits of being a lord, who was willing to live on the edge of a knife every day in a place like the High Continent. The technological planet in front of him gave Lord Dark Martial the illusion that he had returned to the cerulean planet, making him feel intimate and relaxed. Emichim. A firefly insect that emitted a faint light flew in the sky and emitted a faint female voice. Even though there were many life planets like this in the insect tribe universe, there was actually nothing worth cherishing. For example, this inhabited planet in front of him. There were originally more than 100 million Cologne clansmen living here. However, there were only 3 to 4 Black Iron Tier extraordinary individuals, and once they appeared, they would be captured for research by the government. It could be seen how rare extraordinary power was here. No. Or rather than being rare, it was better to say that there was too little promotion energy on this planet and it was very difficult to give birth to extraordinary tier life forms. This was also why Boss did not care about the resources on this planet. No matter how many life planets I have, they're not even a hair of the High Continent. It's very difficult for even a Black Iron Tier extraordinary tier individual to be born on planet Cologne. But in the High Continent, Black Iron Tier life forms are cannon fodder in war. Even a true God Tier can be born. Master God Tier is willing to set their sights on the High Continent. The difference is too great. She sighed in her heart. The first time she went to the High Continent, she was immediately shocked by the rich promotional energy there. At that time, the shock in her heart was like a country bumpkin coming to a first-tier city. It was simply indescribable. If not for the fact that her foundation was in the insect tribe universe and that the reputation of the Zerg race was really not good in the myriad worlds, she would have wanted to stay in the High Continent and not leave if there was a chance she would personally be killed by the god spirits of the High Continent. Thank you, Boss Insect Lord. I'll definitely do my best for you. At this moment, the Black Martial Lord also came back to his senses and immediately expressed his loyalty to the Insect Lord. The Insect Lord, which was emitting a faint white light, suddenly chuckled. Just talking about it won't do. Then what will it take for Boss to believe me? The Black Martial Lord asked carefully. Easy. Just accept a little trick of mine. As soon as she finished speaking, an extremely ugly worm that looked like a face-hugging worm suddenly jumped out of the soil under his feet. Then, under the terrified cries of the Dark Martial Lord, it hugged his face and slowly bit him. Ah! Save me! Kill this crazy woman! The Dark Martial Lord fell to the ground and scratched his face crazily as he screamed. However, in the eyes of the soldiers behind him, at this moment, the Dark Martial Lord did not let out any screams. Instead, he stood there like a normal person and chatted calmly with the Insect Lord. Even though the soldiers were curious about the content of the conversation and the origin of this insect that emitted light, no one dared to approach them. No need to scream. I've long placed the phantom insects near you. They can't see your appearance or hear your cries. The insect lord smiled faintly. You're so ruthless. The dark martial lord was on the verge of death, his voice revealing despair. Don't worry, I won't kill you. I will only control you through this method and let you retain most of your intelligence. However, you will definitely be loyal to me in the future. A subordinate with a brain is more valuable than a brainless puppet after all. Moreover, I need you to control your 8 million. Extraordinary tier people. The insect lord was a little excited. More than 8 million extraordinary tier military forces. There were even 3 epic tier experts among them. Even she, who was called the insect god by her lords, only barely had so many subordinates. This silly dark martial lord could be said to have directly doubled her strength. These 8 million low-level extraordinary tier soldiers are nothing. On the other hand, the 3 epic tier experts need to use some methods to control them. With this enhancement in strength, I wonder how far my faction is from the King of the Blazing Sun. The insect lord thought to herself. At this moment, there was a bang. The cerebrate worm on the black martial lord's face suddenly exploded into countless minced meat and fell to the ground. Who? The insect lord suddenly shouted. Weren't you thinking about me just now? A faint smile sounded. The insect lord was stunned for a moment before her body trembled. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 698 The Escaped Insect Lord. Return. The insect lord looked up. A peerless and handsome man in the emperor dragon robe was flying in the air and looking down at her. Behind him was a huge spaceship that could cover the sky. His galaxy spaceship and him were only hovering in mid-air, but it already gave the insect lord a lot of psychological pressure. King of the Blazing Sun, the insect lord gritted her teeth. Insect lord, Zhou Zhou looked at her. When I found out that this was the insect tribe universe, I guessed that the boss behind the dark martial lord was you. The insect lord remained silent. She did not even ask if it was the dark martial lord who leaked the secret. Otherwise, how would he know about her hidden identity as the boss? Because the insect lord knew that at King of the Blazing Sun's level, he could contend for hegemony with the top lords of all races. Being able to use some amazing intelligence-gathering methods would be too normal for him. King of the Blazing Sun. The insect lord suddenly whispered. You're too powerful. However, it's precisely because you're very powerful that you seem to have become arrogant. You actually dare to come to my home ground alone. Come out, my children. The insect lord suddenly roared at the sky. Her voice was as sharp and ear-piercing as a poisonous bug. The next second, more than 8 million zergs appeared from the void and surrounded Zhou Zhou from all directions, leaving not a single gap. Facing this scene, Zhou Zhou remained calm. He even glanced at the insectoids calmly. These strange things are all your subordinates. Zhou Zhou clicked his tongue in wonder. He was used to seeing those handsome men and beautiful women in his territory. Occasionally looking at these strange-looking insects actually gave him a rare sense of comfort. Could this be the relaxation after aesthetic fatigue? Zhou Zhou could not help but think. Attack. Kill him at all costs. The insect lord roared. As soon as she finished speaking. Sizzle. Sizzle. Caw caw. Wuxia, crack. Crack. All kinds of insect cries came from these 9 million insectoids. It was extremely noisy. You're mistaken. I didn't come alone. Zhou Zhou said calmly. The next second, the galaxy above his head shone brightly. Right on the heels of that, ripples appeared in the void below the spaceship. Then, more than 20 million Blazing Sun City soldiers appeared out of thin air. Under the lead of the generals, they roared and flew towards the Zergs. At this moment, the battle suddenly descended. Zhou Zhou and the insect lord watched as the soldiers from both sides fought. Then, they saw the scales of victory on the battlefield tilt towards Zhou Zhou at a visible rate. Not only were Zhou Zhou's soldiers 3 times more than the insect lords, but their average strength was also stronger. The strongest insect soldiers under the insect lord were only extraordinary tier. As for Zhou Zhou, he had legendary tier soldiers. Coupled with the difference in numbers, equipment, potions, single-use weapons, and combat experience, it would be strange if Zhou Zhou's side did not have the advantage. These Zergs are quite interesting. They seem to have been modified. Zhou Zhou realized this after carefully observing these Zerg soldiers. Then, without hesitation, he stretched out his right hand and activated Insight Defection. The next second, an invisible fluctuation covered these insect soldiers with his right palm as the center and quickly enveloped them, and a text notification appeared. Prompt: you have activated your Lord exclusive talent, Insight Defection. Insight Defection has taken effect. Lord Talent Notification: there are a total of 841,525 black iron tier iron-tailed worms, 691,251 green bronze tier scythe mantises, 348,411 white silver tier ladybugs, 149,660 yellow gold tier meteorite golden turtle ants, 19,960 white platinum tier blood dragons, 1,001 diamond tier gold swallowing goo, and 50 extraordinary tier dark demonic butterflies have betrayed their lord's faction and become your loyal subordinates. 2 million Zergs. Not bad. Zhou Zhou nodded. While this number was far inferior to the results of the refined flame Scarlet Legion, he could use these 2 million Zerg to probe the background of this Zerg lord. In this way, he could know what he wanted even without the help of the Bodhi Supreme, or even know more. On the other side, just now, after Zhou Zhou activated Insight Defection, the Insect Lord suddenly felt that her life connection with the 8 million plus insects was reduced by a quarter. This made her heart sink. Why did this King of the Blazing Sun have so many means that caught people off guard? At this moment, a blood-colored sword light suddenly appeared from the void behind the light spot. Before the Insect Lord could react, it pierced through the firefly worm that represented her existence. King of the Blazing Sun, we will meet again in the future. An angry voice came from where the firefly worms were. Then, the firefly worms that had been pierced by the blood sword turned into countless specks of light and dissipated into the air. Suan, who was still in the posture of drawing his sword, frowned slightly. After confirming that the other party had really escaped, he pulled up the unconscious Dark Martial Lord and turned into a bloody light that soared into the sky, flying in the direction of Zhou Zhou. At the same time, after the Insect Lord escaped, the 800 Zergs around Zhou Zhou seemed to have received an order. They suddenly roared crazily and launched a suicidal attack on Zhou Zhou's soldiers fearlessly. Caught off guard, even though Zhou Zhou's soldiers' strength, equipment level, and combat experience far exceeded the other party, some of them were still injured. However, they were veterans after all. He quickly adjusted himself and calmly welcomed the final counterattack of these insectoid soldiers. A moment later, the battlefield returned to calm. Zhou Zhou's side won. Then, he asked Wuxia to control the galaxy and put away all the Zerg corpses. Then, he returned to the back galaxy and flew straight back to the temporary cross-border teleportation channel. In front of the temporary cross-border teleportation channel, he took one last look at the Insect Tribe universe before opening the Insect Race Lord World channel on Cerulean Planet. With his Lord of the Blazing Sun ID, he sent a message on the World channel. Lord of the Blazing Sun is here. After that, he didn't care how much of a commotion his words had caused among these insect race lords. Without any hesitation, he stepped into the temporary cross-border teleportation channel and disappeared. Black Marshall City, where the temporary cross-border teleportation space tunnel was. The Mystic Heaven Lord was stationed here. At this moment, the Mystic Heaven Lord was observing his surroundings to prevent any enemies from approaching. He looked worriedly at the temporary cross-border teleportation channel and frowned from time to time. At this moment, a silver stream of light flashed through the temporary cross-border teleportation channel. Then, the galaxy's huge spacecraft appeared in the sky again. Mystic Heaven Lord looked at the galaxy and heaved a sigh of relief. He looked at the temporary cross-border teleportation channel again and realized that it was dissipating bit by bit until it completely disappeared. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 699 Interrogation in the Galaxy. In a small conference room, Zhou and Mystic Heaven Lord were sitting there. At this moment, they were looking at a man kneeling on the ground with drool dripping from the corner of his mouth. He was smiling foolishly. This man was none other than the Dark Martial Lord. How did Lord Dark Martial become like this? Mystic Heaven Lord could not help but feel a chill in his heart when he saw the Dark Martial Lord's expression. He looked at Zhou carefully. Could this be done by Zhou? Wasn't this too ruthless? Don't look at me. I'm not interested in this kind of thing. The person behind Lord Dark Martial made him like this. Zhou said calmly. He had arrived at the scene a long time ago with the galaxy. However, because he wanted to know more information, he had been hiding in the dark and did not appear. It was not until the Insect Lord wanted to turn the Dark Martial Lord into one of her own that he decisively attacked and appeared in front of the Insect Lord. There's someone behind him. The Mystic Heaven Lord was stunned. It's the Insect Lord. That woman even established a Sun Extermination Association and recruited a group of lords who are hostile to me. Zhou smiled and told him about it. The Sun Extermination Association has appeared again. The Mystic Heaven Lord said in surprise. He knew that his new backer usually did not like to take the initiative to show off on the World Channel. Therefore, there was not much news about him on the World Channel. And the Sun Extermination Association incident was one of the few incidents where the Lord of the Blazing Sun was involved. Back then, he had even watched the commotion for fun. Zhou nodded casually. Then how does your Majesty plan to deal with this organization? Is there anything I can do? The Mystic Heaven Lord immediately said. Now that he was Zhou's subordinate, he naturally knew how to protect the interests of his faction and attack the enemies of his faction. There's no need to do anything about it. Just issue a warrant and see if they have the guts to show up. Zhou shook his head. Won't it be a disaster to raise a tiger? The Mystic Heaven Lord said worriedly. Let's wait until they grow to the level of the top lords of the myriad races before talking about raising a tiger. In my opinion, the value of me focusing on my own development is much higher than the value of spending effort to destroy them. Zhou said. And there was another very important reason. He had already checked the temporary cross-border teleportation channel. The remaining power of space teleportation on it was no longer enough for him to use the gate of restart again. And he currently did not have the preparations and means to fight across the universe. Therefore, to him, at this stage, it was very inconvenient to conquer a lord from another universe. Since that was the case, there was no need to spend so much effort. Seeing how determined Zhou was, the Mystic Heaven Lord did not say anything else. He believed that His Majesty had his own judgment. I will talk to the Military Industry Lord, the Dragon Lady Lord, and the Undead Lord later and get them to issue the arrest warrant together. He said. Zhou acknowledged. Then, Zhou and the Mystic Heaven Lord chatted for a while. The Mystic Heaven Lord could not help but say, I feel that His Majesty seems to have the dermic powers of us Chi practitioners. That's right, I'm also a Chi practitioner. The immortal who gave me the Chi practitioner class change certificate is from the Myriad Sword Immortal sect. Ask the elders of the Profound Heaven Immortal sect later. They should know. Zhou chuckled. There was nothing to hide. The Mystic Heaven Lord's eyes lit up. It turned out that both His Majesty and him were Chi practitioners. Moreover, from His Majesty's words, their sects seemed to have a certain relationship. He immediately felt that his relationship with His Majesty had become even closer. Then, the two of them chatted for a while before Mystic Heaven Lord stood up and left. Before walking out of the room, the Mystic Heaven Lord took one last look at the silly Dark Martial Lord. The formidable enemy he had been vexed about all this time couldn't last more than half a day in the hands of this King of the Blazing Sun. He even fled to another universe, but he couldn't escape from His Majesty's grasp. The Mystic Heaven Lord thought silently. No wonder so many people like to cozy up to someone powerful. His life problem could be resolved with a causal order in front of a big shot after all. With this comparison, who wouldn't want to find a backer to cozy up to someone powerful? At this moment, he was no longer resistant to becoming Zhou Zhou's subordinate. He even planned to work hard for Zhou Zhou in the future. Only then would he have a higher status among Zhou Zhou's many capable subordinates. Let's first do a good job of establishing the Black Heaven Sect branch in the Blazing Sun Kingdom. He thought firmly. Then, he left the spaceship. On the other side, Zhou Zhou looked at the foolishly smiling Dark Martial Lord in front of him. You deserve to end up like this. But you can't continue to be so stupid now. I still have to ask you something. Zhou Zhou muttered to himself and healed him with the Chaos Healing Technique. Right on the heels of that, under the treatment of the Chaos Healing Technique, the originally silly Dark Martial Lord's eyes gradually became clear and his consciousness gradually became clear. Ah! He screamed in horror and frantically touched his face. What made him gradually heave a sigh of relief was that the insect lord's cerebrate worm seemed to have disappeared from his face. Then, he saw Zhou Zhou looking at him calmly. That extremely handsome, godlike face immediately let him know that the other party was the King of the Blazing Sun that he was extremely afraid of. King of the Blazing Sun, his face was extremely pale. He had just left the wolf's den and was now in the tiger's den. Why are you so afraid of me? Just saved you from the insect lord and healed the injuries caused by the cerebrate worm, otherwise, you'd still be a fool. Zhou Zhou looked at him and said calmly. Cold sweat broke out on the Dark Martial Lord's head. Then, he suddenly knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Zhou Zhou while begging for mercy. Your Majesty! Your Majesty! You're a magnanimous person. Spare me, a sinner. In the past, I was to entertain angels unaware, which was why I foolishly offended you. If I were given another chance, even if I had 180 more guts, I wouldn't dare to offend you. Please spare me. I'm willing to lead all the Lord members of the Dark Martial Alliance to offer our loyalty to you. From now on, if you want us to go east, we won't go west. If you want us to fight, we won't run. The Dark Martial Lord spoke for more than 10 minutes, but he did not stop. Moreover, all kinds of begging words came out of his mouth. This was the first time Zhou Zhou knew that there were so many ways of begging. Shut up. Zhou Zhou said. The Dark Martial Lord was about to say something when he suddenly stopped. I ask and you answer. If your answers satisfy me, I can spare your life. If you dare to hide or lie, then bear the consequences. There are a lot of extraordinary methods to detect lies on this high continent. Don't think you can hide it from me. Zhou Zhou stared into his eyes and said coldly. Such a weak-minded person. He could hear what he was thinking effortlessly. Yes. Yes, Your Majesty. I promise to tell you everything I know. The Dark Martial Lord hurriedly said. Tell me about you, the Sun Extermination Association, and the Insect Lord. Zhou Zhou said. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 700 Insect Lord's Lord Talent, Genetic Map. The Dark Martial Lord took a deep breath and began to organize his thoughts. Then, he said with a trembling voice, in the beginning, I didn't have much to do with the Insect Lord. However, one morning, a strange black insect suddenly found me. It didn't say anything else and only asked me to add the insect lord as a friend. I naturally know the name of the insect lord. There are only a few legendary tier lord talents among the human lords on Cerulean planet after all. Therefore, I agreed without thinking. Later on, she asked me to join her insect god alliance on the condition that she would help me develop my territory and give me resources for development in the future. After a while, she saw that there were no problems with me and asked me to join the Sun Extermination Association. I didn't dare to refuse, so I joined the Sun Extermination Association. Then, the Kingdom Token incident happened. Zhou knew everything that happened after that. After listening, he was sure that this guy was not lying. How many lords does the Sun Extermination Association have? Zhou asked. About a dozen. This organization has just been rebuilt by the Insect Lord, so it hasn't recruited many people yet. The Dark Martial Lord said in a low voice. Tell me what you know about the Insect Lord. Zhou nodded and asked. The Dark Martial Lord thought about it and his eyes lit up. I know an important piece of information about the Insect Lord. Cut the crap. Just say it. Yes. Yes. The Insect Lord is actually working with the Dragon God Lord now. The Dark Martial Lord said quickly. Working together? How are they working together? Zhou was a little surprised. Then, he reacted. A space teleportation channel? Your Majesty is right. The Insect Lord had mastered a method to open the passageways to other universes, and then found the Dragon God Lord in the elemental realm. They then worked together. I'm not too sure about the entire contents of their collaboration, but it seems to be related to the fusion of insect genes and dragon genes. The Dark Martial Lord hurriedly said. Zhou was stunned. Then, a white platinum tier insect called Blood Dragon flashed across his mind. At that time, he was only a little surprised. He did not expect the insect tribe universe to have a high-level bloodline creature like the dragon tribe. Now he realized that the blood dragon was very likely a product of genetic fusion developed by the Insect Lord. I'll check it out later. Zhou thought. Then, he thought of the chat content of the Lords of Cerulean Planet on the Insect Race Lord World channel. The Insect Lord seems to have a way to improve his genes and potential. Zhou looked at Lord Dark Martial. Yes, Your Majesty. The Dark Martial Lord hurriedly nodded. The Insect Lord told me that her legendary tier Lord talent is called the Genetic Map. It can contain the genes of all creatures in the world and make use of them at will. It said that many of the insects with unique abilities under her command are genetically modified insects that she personally created through the genetic map. However, according to her, it depends on luck to create this kind of genetic modification. It requires a large number of genetic modification experiments to successfully create a new example of excellent genetic modification. This process consumes a lot of resources, so even she rarely uses this Lord talent. Zhou acknowledged. However, that was what he said. However, judging from the reactions of the Insect Lords on the World Channel, that Insect Lord had probably succeeded many times and had already started to use it to seek benefits for himself. At the thought of this, Zhou could not help but feel that it was a pity. This legendary tier Lord talent, genetic map, was also a Lord talent that was comparable to a cheat. Unfortunately, he could only stay in the insect tribe universe for a short period of time. Otherwise, she would definitely think of a way to find him and take his Lord talent. In any case, the other party had even established the Sun Extermination Association. Zhou did not feel burdened at all. The other party has grasped the method to come to the High Continent and established the Sun Extermination Association. He's not giving up on destroying me. If that's the case, I'll wait for you to come and kill me before taking your Lord talent. He thought. His ability. It was his greatest confidence to be so calm and even indulge the other party. He believed that as long as he did not stop and continued to improve. Since the other party had not surpassed him previously, then, it would be even more impossible for her to surpass him in the future. If he became lazy in the future, he would stop advancing and let the other party surpass him. Then he would deserve whatever was coming his way. Perhaps I can deliberately create the illusion that I'm weak. At that time, I might lure out the insect lord and other enemies who have designs on me. This thought suddenly appeared in Zhou Zhou's mind. He shook his head. It all depended on the timing. The current situation was definitely not good. Perhaps in the future. That array-devouring goo toad was also modified by the insect lord. Zhou Zhou recalled this matter and asked. Now that the array-devouring goo toad had been locked into Zhou Zhou's small world, it was trembling in fear from the lightning in his small world. It's not just the modification of the genetic map. I heard that the insect lord even used some goo cultivation methods to refine that array-devouring goo toad. That array-devouring goo toad is really precious to her. If I hadn't brought more than 8 million soldiers to that universe, I'm afraid the insect lord wouldn't have let me come into contact with the array-devouring goo toad. The dark martial lord muttered. Then, he suddenly realized something. Your Majesty, my 8 million soldiers. Before he could finish speaking, he saw Zhou Zhou's calm gaze on him and he was so frightened that he hurriedly changed his words. What about your Majesty's 8 million soldiers? I brought them all back. In the future, they will live well in my blazing sun kingdom. Their families will also be brought over. Zhou Zhou said calmly. The dark martial lord nodded and bowed. Zhou Zhou said nothing. He recalled what the other party had said just now. Insect race and a goo cultivator. She will definitely be the protagonist if this was in an online novel. But if I take out 28 Lord talents, including 3 mythical tier unique Lord talents, how will you deal with them? Then, Zhou Zhou asked Lord Dark Marshal some more questions. Lord Dark Marshal was very afraid of death. He had done everything he could to answer. If he could not answer, he simply did not know. You can go now. Zhou Zhou said. The Dark Martial Lord was delighted. Thank you, Your Majesty. Thank you, Your Majesty. I will definitely repay Your Majesty for sparing my life in the future. With that, he immediately turned around respectfully and left the room. Zhou Zhou looked at his departing figure and sneered. This guy. The moment he left, he finally revealed his malicious intent. I'll definitely repay you in the future. After the Dark Martial Lord left the small conference room, although his expression did not change, he immediately thought viciously in his heart. He had already figured it out. The Dark Martial Alliance was finished. There should be no place for him among the humans on the cerulean planet. Since that was the case, he might as well join the people of foreign races. When he was the Alliance Master of the Dark Martial Alliance, he had obtained a lot of information about the human Lord of Cerulean Planet and the King of the Blazing Sun. He could exchange this information for a large sum of money no matter which people of foreign race he went to. Especially the information about King of the Blazing Sun. Those people of foreign races would definitely be very interested in the information about the strongest lord of all races. As for the consequences, who cares? It was fine as long as he lived well. If that didn't work, he would change his race. He had long been fed up with the low potential of the human race. Soon, he got off the spaceship. Just as he was fantasizing about joining the people of foreign races in the future and living a glorious life, he suddenly saw that a large group of Dark Martial City's subjects had gathered in front of him. At this moment, they were all looking at him as if they wanted to eat him alive. Who are you? The Dark Martial Lord was shocked. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was even angrier. Many people looked at him with bloodshot eyes. Lord Dark Martial. Do you still remember that girl called Sun Ling? She's my sister. However, because you occasionally went out on the streets and took a fancy to her beautiful appearance, you ordered the soldiers to snatch my sister in the middle of the night. In less than 2 days, when my sister returned, she had already become a ravaged corpse. I'm here to avenge my sister. Su Chawu. You bastard. Some time ago, you rode your dog-shit cloud wolf mount on the street and barged along the way, killing my old father, who was resting at a roadside stall. Have you forgotten? Lord Dark Marshal. Just because my second brother said a few words about your usual atrocities in the tea-house, you ordered your soldiers to capture him and kill him. How cruel and heartless are you? Lord Dark Marshal, you deserve to die. More and more angry roars sounded. Soon, the Dark Martial Lord was injured and this was like a fuse. More and more people gathered around. One punch, one kick, one saber, one sword. At first, the Dark Martial Lord was screaming very loudly. Until his voice stopped abruptly. A moment later. The crowd dispersed. Only a minced meat that didn't look human was left at the scene. A soldier walked over and stowed it in a sack expressionlessly before returning to the spaceship. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 701 Epic Tier Overlord Talent, Dark Walker, 1. In a small conference room, Zhou looked at the Dark Martial Lord who had turned into minced meat in front of him and shook his head. I've already let you off and even specially told all the subjects of Dark Martial City this good news. You brought this upon yourself. You can't blame me if you can't live. He said. Zhou did not touch the other party's corpse, directly extracted his loots from afar. His gaze landed only on the other party's Lord Talent Sphere and Lord Talent Crystal Fragment. Treasure name, Lord Talent Sphere, Dark Walker, Treasure grade, Epic Tier, Treasure effect, after absorbing it, the Lord will have an Epic Tier Lord Talent, Dark Walker. Treasure description, a Lord Talent Sphere purified by the Supreme Will. After absorbing it, you can obtain an Epic Tier Lord Talent. Absorb this Lord Talent Sphere, Epic Tier. Dark Walker. Is this the higher level talent of an extraordinary tier Lord Talent, Dark Martial Artist? Zhou clicked his tongue in wonder. Then, without hesitation, he directly absorbed this Lord Talent. The next second, the Epic Tier Lord Talent Sphere immediately turned into countless purple light spots and surged into his glabella. Zhou closed his eyes. A moment later. He reopened his eyes again after some time. Then, he immediately opened his Lord's personal information. In his Lord Talent column, the Epic Tier Lord Talent, Dark Walker, appeared. The 29th Lord Talent. I'm about to break through 30. Zhou nodded. Then, he opened the details of the talent. Lord Talent, Dark Walker, Epic Tier, Dark Walker, a special Lord Talent. When the Scarlet Fog first descended on the High Continent, countless life forms accidentally entered the Scarlet Fog because they did not know the dangers of the Scarlet Fog. In the end, they were killed by the fog monsters hidden in the Scarlet Fog. In the face of the increasingly vast Scarlet Fog, the compressed living environment made the survival of normal life forms the most urgent problem. In this critical moment of life and death, a group of forerunners who were not afraid of death had created a special obscure class, Dark Walker, through countless explorations and sacrifices. The Dark Walkers were not powerful enough to destroy the Scarlet Fog, but they had mastered various strange methods to resist the corrosion of the Scarlet Fog. They used their power to protect the safety of normal life forms relying on these strange methods, when the powerful extraordinaires did not save them, greatly slowing down the speed at which normal life forms died. Later, when powerful extraordinaires appeared and protected them, the Dark Walkers were gradually forgotten by the world because they did not master supernatural powers and other drawbacks. Specific Talent Effect 1, your territory has a Dark Walker class change statue. When a life form makes an oath to protect normal life forms in front of the class change statue, it can automatically become a Dark Walker and master all the methods of a Dark Walker. Specific Talent Effect 2, Black Membrane. Dark Walkers can activate a power called Black Membrane, causing a black membrane to appear around them, protecting them from the corrosion of the scarlet fog when they go out at night. Specific Talent Effect 3, Demon Vanquishing Powder. The Dark Walker has mastered a special potion-making method called Demon Vanquishing Powder. After encountering a fog monster and throwing the Demon Vanquishing Powder on the monster, it can eliminate the increase in strength obtained by the fog monster. Specific Talent Effect 4, Demon Concealment Ointment. The Dark Walker has mastered a special potion-making method called Demon Concealment Ointment. After applying the Demon Concealment Ointment on himself, when he encounters fog monsters, there is a high chance that the fog monsters will treat the living beings who use the Demon Concealment Ointment as members of the fog monsters' camp, so that he will not be attacked by the fog monsters. Specific Talent Effect 5, Sacred Redemption Medicine. The Dark Walker has mastered a special potion-making method called the Sacred Redemption Medicine. After consuming the Sacred Redemption Medicine, there is a certain probability that a life form that had just turned into a fog monster not long ago could become a normal life form again. Lord Talent Notification 1, this class has been optimized by the Supreme Will, removing the disadvantage of changing into a Dark Walker. Lord Talent Notification 2, when the Dark Walker loses the will to protect normal life forms, he will automatically lose all the means of the Dark Walker. Lord Talent Notification 3, this class is a life profession. Any living being who has the ambition to protect normal life forms can work part-time. After Zhou read the details of this Lord Talent, his eyes widened. What did he see? There was actually a potion that could turn the fog monster back into a normal life form. The Sacred Redemption Medicine. This effect was indeed worthy of its reputation as a sacred medicine. In comparison, the talent effect called Black Membrane seemed a little insignificant. One had to know that Zhou had come into contact with many important figures and obtained many bloodline inheritances ever since he arrived in the High Continent. In terms of knowledge and experience, he believed that even the clansmen from those great races might not be better than him. Even so, he had never heard of anyone researching a potion that could turn the fog monster into a normal life form. It was as if it was irreversible. Now, he actually saw such a magical method in a profession called the Dark Walker. Moreover, such a class had other magical methods to deal with the fog monsters. Black Membrane, Demon Vanquishing Powder, Demon Concealment Ointment. From the looks of it, any one of them was enough to shock all the living beings in the High Continent. At the thought of this, Zhou was even more puzzled. How could such a useful class decline? He thought. That shouldn't be the case since the myriad worlds were affected by the Crimson Overlord's scarlet fog, this profession should be able to shine in such an environment. He thought for a moment and decided to look for the Dark Walker's professional statue first. When Zhou thought of this, he immediately got Wuxia to use the teleportation array to return to the ancient teleportation array from before. Then, at full speed, they returned to the capital in the blink of an eye. The spatial teleportation array of the Mystic Heaven Immortal Alliance headquarters should be completed tomorrow. At that time, it won't be so troublesome to go back and forth. Zhou thought. Actually, it was not very troublesome. Flying back and forth was a matter of the blink of an eye with the galaxy. However, he only had 10 galaxy after all. He would definitely use them all in war. How could he use them for normal transportation? Dragon Lady Lord, Military Industry Lord, and Undead Lord have to arrange teleportation arrays as well. Even though these three people have submitted to me, they should still have some ambition in their hearts. Open the teleportation array and let them see the difference. Perhaps we can eliminate their ambitions and make them completely loyal. If we open the teleportation array, they will have some thoughts that they shouldn't have. Then he'll find out in time. Zhou's expression was dark. Please don't give him a reason to attack. Other than the Military Industry Lord. The Dragon Lady Lord and the Undead Lord both had Epic Tier Lord talents. Once he dealt with these two people, with the enhancement of his loots, they could directly become two legendary tier lord talents. While he did not lack two legendary tier lord talents, if it was offered to him, he would not refuse. However, if they were willing to follow him obediently, he was also willing to accept them. They were talents who had relied on their own strength to reach this level after all. They all had extremely strong leadership and organizational ability. Moreover, Zhou valued talents. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 702 Epic Tier Lord Talent, Dark Walker, 2, especially as his territory increased, he needed more and more such talents with strong organizational and leadership abilities. As for Dragon Lady Lord and the others, they were undoubtedly such top talents. Or rather, every lord of all races was either a talented person or a worker with experience from the relevant organizations. It was just that the Dragon Lady Lord and the others were the best among them. Zhou called Atli over and asked her to find the professional statue of the Dark Walker. Half an hour later, Atli came back. Your Majesty, we've found it. Atli said respectfully. Take me there. Zhou stood up. Yes, Your Majesty. Then, the two of them left the place one after another. A moment later, Zhou stood in front of a statue. This statue was only as tall as a person. He wore a black robe and carried a medicine basket on his back. He held a walking stick in his hand and walked forward. He looked ordinary and did not feel anything special. This is the Dark Walker's class advancement statue. Zhou looked at the statue in disbelief. It was a talent creation with an epic tier lord talent after all. Why did it look worse than a statue at a roadside stall? Moreover, this statue appeared in a very remote place. It was as if it was afraid that others would notice it. He didn't think too much about it and thought about the class change. Determined to protect normal life forms, Zhou thought for a moment and his expression gradually turned solemn. I, Zhou, was originally just one of the many living beings. Of course I won't forget my roots. I will always abide by the will of the Dark Walker and protect my subjects. He said. He definitely loved his subject and would even think of ways to nurture them. They could spend as much manpower, financial resources, and material resources as they wanted. However, for those who resented him, hated him, and even wanted to destroy him, why should he care if the other party was dead or alive? After he finished speaking, he quietly looked at the statue of the Dark Walker. 10 seconds later, a black light flew out of the statue of the Dark Walker and flew towards Zhou. Zhou endured it and did not move, allowing the black light to fly into his glabella. He felt some class inheritance information appear in his mind. This included the origins of the Dark Walkers, history, famous professionals, achievement, and the most important method of creating the black membrane, demon vanquishing powder, demon concealment ointment, and sacred redemption medicine. Soon, Zhou had completely absorbed all the inheritance of this class. After he came back to his senses, he could not help but sigh faintly. There are so few class inheritances, blacksmiths have more skills than you. While that was true, Zhou, who had already become a Dark Walker and received the inheritance of the Dark Walker, already knew why there were so few inheritances of this class. It was simple, it was just that its development time was too short. Moreover, the disadvantages of its previous class also made very few people willing to take on this profession. The first Dark Walker developed the special power of the black membrane, which ignores the corrosion of the scarlet fog, by devouring the corpse of the fog monster and supplementing it with some digestive secret medicine. But it's not without a price. The price was, Dark Walkers who have mastered the black membrane technique will lose control of their bodies as the number of times they use the black membrane increases. They will become uglier and uglier, less and less like ordinary life forms, more and more like fog monsters. In the end, they would almost 100% become a new fog monster. That's exactly why every Dark Walker would usually choose to hide their figure in a black robe to prevent others from seeing their abnormality. When one is about to lose control of their consciousness and become a fog monster, the Dark Walker will choose to leave the gathering place of life forms and head to the final destination alone. Then, he will commit suicide and end his life. The fate of every Dark Walker is almost always this tragic. This is the price of obtaining the power of the fog. That's why even the Dark Walker himself is unwilling to pass down this profession. In addition, after the Dark Walkers saw that the extraordinaires had taken action and protected the living beings of the High Continent, they felt that their class was redundant, so they were even more unwilling to leave legacies behind for their class. Hence, in less than 100 years, this profession disappeared. Zhou Zhou fell silent. Only now did he know the weight of the Dark Walker profession. This profession had clearly saved countless life forms when it was born. However, because of this act of saving life forms, they bore the curse of fate. In the end, they all embarked on self-destruction, not even leaving their names behind. As for why they did not leave behind the recipes for the demon vanquishing powder, demon concealment ointment, and sacred redemption medicine when they self-destructed, Zhou Zhou only found out after becoming a Dark Walker. This was because the materials for making the demon vanquishing powder, demon concealment ointment, and sacred redemption medicine all required a little bit of the Dark Walker's own blood as the medicinal catalyst. Only then could these three divine medicines be effective. Otherwise, their effects were no different from poison. Even when using these three potions, he needed the Dark Walker to activate them with the power of the black membrane. Otherwise, he would not be able to use these three potions. It was precisely because of these two reasons that the Dark Walker did not leave behind the formulas for the three potions. Or rather, they were left behind but no one could discover their value, and in the end, they gradually declined. Zhou Zhou thought for a moment and took out a piece of paper. Then, he wrote down all the herbs needed for the potions and handed it to Atli. Atli took it and looked at it. She realized that the medicinal herbs inside were all unqualified medicinal herbs. What did it mean to be unqualified? They were ordinary herbs that were even inferior to black iron tier herbs. A medicinal herb of this level could be said that it was everywhere and was not valuable at all in an extraordinary place like the High Continent. Zhou Zhou found it hard to imagine. Back then, the first batch of Dark Walkers had relied on these unorthodox herbs to bring hope to the living beings who had suffered the Scarlet Fog disaster for the first time. Get Linger to gather all the medicinal herbs here. Collect 10 billion sets first. Inform the Alchemist Guild, the pharmacists, doctors, and other classes in the territory. They can even be normal subjects. From now on, do your best to make this potion. These potions were originally made by ordinary people after research. With a little familiarity with his territory's subjects, he could easily make them. Wenya. You should also start building the corresponding pharmaceutical factory. Once it's completed, start working immediately. All the expenses mentioned above will be handled by the kingdom. Zhou Zhou said. Yes. Your Majesty. The gentle voice that was everywhere appeared in Zhou Zhou's mind. Lastly, get all the soldiers and subjects in the territory to come here and accept the profession inheritance of the Dark Walker. That's all for now. Zhou Zhou said. Yes, Your Majesty. I'll do it right away. Atli said respectfully. Zhou Zhou nodded. The current Dark Walker class no longer had the disadvantages of the class that they had when they were just developed. Naturally, he could allow all subjects to accept his class inheritance. Zhou Zhou felt that the history of the Dark Walker should not be forgotten by the world. He would let the subjects of his territory remember them first. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 703 The Angry Bodhi Supreme. The Fearful Insect Lord. After Atli left, Zhou Zhou raised his hands and clenched his fists slightly. The next second, As his power erupted, wisps of black light appeared on the surface of his body, then formed a thin black membrane on his body. So this is the black membrane. Indeed, I don't feel any supernatural power augmenting this black membrane. This black membrane can only give life forms the ability to resist the corrosion of the scarlet fog. It's like wearing close-fitting soft armor. Zhou Zhou muttered to himself. The class characteristics of this dark walker were somewhat similar to the class characteristics of a demon hunter. They could obtain the ability to protect themselves from their enemies, and their lifespans were extremely long. However, demon hunters could have extraordinary power and form very quickly. This was not something that dark walkers could compare to. Previously, Zhou Zhou also wanted to obtain a demon hunter class. With his current fighting god full-time Master 6, it was naturally not a problem for him to have 6 additional classes. However, the grade of the demon bloodline that Gurton, the demon hunter subject, could provide him with was too low. The best demon bloodline was only at the extraordinary tier level. Zhou Zhou now had a god spirit level subordinate. His ambition naturally became higher. In his eyes, no matter what, only a low-tier deity-level demon bloodline was worthy of his attention. The low-level demon bloodline ability was almost useless to him, who only used law skills when fighting now. Therefore, Zhou Zhou wanted to make a trip to the front lines of the abyss through the Night Temple in the future when he had the time. He wanted to send his god spirits to hunt for a god-tier demon bloodline so that it could become his first demon bloodline power as a demon hunter class. However, because he had been too busy recently, this matter had been delayed until now. I'll deal with the demon hunter class after I'm done with my work. Zhou Zhou thought. There was so much he needed to do now, like solving the Refined Flame Scarlet Legion, completing the hidden mission of the New Wind Demon Kingdom, searching for the lost treasures of the New Wind Demon Kingdom, and the current activity of the King of 10,000 Kings. Everything else was also important, so he could only put aside the matter of the demon hunter class. Zhou Zhou was not idle either. He found Wu Tu and asked him to give the order for the soldiers to rest for an hour before leading the soldiers to help Bai Yun, Wu Xian, and the others to protect the 450 million new recruits and increase their strength. Then, Zhou Zhou spent 3 normal questions to find out the location of the headquarters of the Dragon Lady Alliance, the Undead Alliance, and the Military and Industrial Alliance through the Bodhi Supreme. That's it. I won't let you ask questions on credit again. Pay off the debt you owe first. Bodhi Supreme could no longer hold it in facing Zhou Zhou's repeated debts. After shouting, it stopped talking. Zhou Zhou poked the other party twice before it actually turned invisible and disappeared. We'll meet again when you pay your debts. Humph. After Bodhi Supreme finished speaking, it really did not respond to Zhou Zhou. Zhou Zhou was helpless. In that case, then he would probably not see this big brother for 6 to 7 days. Looks like he'll have to settle the debt slowly first. Zhou Zhou lamented. Fortunately, there was nothing important to ask now. Otherwise, it would really be a little troublesome. Then, he found Suan. I have a quest for you. You and Vicky lead the array masters of the Night Empire, and some people needed to set up the array. Go to the Dragon Lady Lord's Dragon Blood Alliance headquarters, the Undead Lord's Undead Alliance headquarters, and the Military Industry Lord's Military Engineering Alliance headquarters and build a 2-way teleportation array led by the Blazing Sun Kingdom at their headquarters. There's no need to pay attention to anything else other than that the right to open and close the teleportation portal has to be in our own hands when building the 2-way teleportation array. Also, when you return, remember to bring back 1/3 of the kingdom's resources from the Dragon Lady Lord, the Undead Lord, and the Mystic Heaven Lord. This is a map of the locations of the 3 headquarters. Take a galaxy and return quickly. Zhou Zhou handed him the map. Yes, Your Majesty. Suan said respectfully, then turned around and left without any hesitation. After everyone left, Zhou Zhou suddenly felt lighter. This was the advantage of having loyal and capable subordinates. There was no need for him to do anything himself. He could just hand it over to his subordinates. The Lord himself could be a hands-off boss and directly accept the results of the capable people's work. Relaxed, Zhou first went to the Alchemist Union, then to the shelter of the Goddess of Life, and then to other places in the territory. He chatted with the subjects for a while and ate barbecue at a roadside stall. Then, he patted his stomach and returned to the advanced grade Lord's Paradise in satisfaction. In an exclusive cultivation room, Zhou sat cross-legged on a mat, preparing to continue comprehending the Lord Talent, Hand of Wealth. However, before that, he looked at the void in front of him and said helplessly, "Bodhi Supreme, I need your help to comprehend the Lord's laws." The air was silent for a while, then, the Bodhi Supreme suddenly appeared in his right hand. "Thank you." Zhou smiled and touched the black gold seed. Then, he used it to enter a state of self-absorption and began to comprehend the Hand of Wealth. At the same time, in the insect tribe universe. Planet Pandora. Damn Lord of the Blazing Sun. A sharp whistle came from the insectoid throne at the highest point of the planet. The entire planet's surface shook. Then, they looked in the direction of their queen in fear, not knowing why their queen was angry. On top of a ferocious royal clan formed from stone sculptures of insectoids. A beautiful woman in a dark purple sexy dress with a dark purple crown on her head and a pair of dark purple narrow eyes was angrily grabbing the handle of her throne, looking like she wanted to crush it. She was the Insect Lord. Ever since she began to use her legendary tier Lord Talent, genetic map, she had worked hard to improve the genes of the Zergs under her command and increase her Lord power. At the same time, she had also created a human body for herself. It was the human body in front of them. This human body was modeled after her original body on Earth. After she succeeded in creating it, she even gave up her original insectoid body and used this human body as her main body. She was once a beautiful female foreign noble. She knew that the insectoids were very powerful. However, she still could not accept the ugly appearance of the insect race. Therefore, she would rather give up her strength and return to her human body. Anyway, as a lord, she did not need to personally take action and fight on the battlefield. Therefore, she actually did not have much obsession with whether her main body was strong or not. But now, the insect lord felt that she had a great obsession with vengeance on Zhou. More than 8 million of my insect race members were actually wiped out by you. All my insectoid subordinates have been destroyed by you. King of the Blazing Sun. You really deserve to die. The insect lord gritted her teeth in hatred. After this battle, her lord's faction could be said to have suffered a huge blow. She might even lose her status as the insect god on the World Channel. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 7. For the perturbed Princess Yuling. Actually, she was already in danger. This was because before the King of the Blazing Sun left, he actually left a sentence on the World Channel, "The Lord of the Blazing Sun was here," which was ridiculous and childish in her eyes. How dare you write this? Do you think your son Wukong? However, it was these ridiculous words that dealt her an even greater blow. This was because the other party could clearly say things like, "Your insect god is just a so-so. I've already easily defeated her," on the World Channel that could deal a greater blow to morale. However, he did not say anything. He only left behind a sentence, "The Lord of the Blazing Sun is here." What did this mean? This meant that in the eyes of the Lord of the Blazing Sun, defeating her was not as interesting as leaving a sentence on the World Channel, "The Lord of the Blazing Sun is here." This was simply a huge insult to the Insect Lord, who had always had a lot of pride. And most importantly, a lord of the Zerg race saw and filmed the entire process of the King of the Blazing Sun defeating her from a hidden angle. It even sent it to the World Channel. As soon as this video was released, all the Zerg lords started doubting the strength of the Insect Lord. Is this really the strongest lord in their insect tribe universe? Why does she look so weak in front of the king of the blazing sun? She was actually completely wiped out after fighting for a while. This result made many on their world channel stop addressing her as the insect god other than a small number of insect lords, fanatical fan lords, and the lord members of the insect god alliance. This great honor came because of her tyrannical strength. In the end, she also lost it because of her strength. The insect lord felt very aggrieved. However, she could not say anything to refute the huge difference in strength between the king of the blazing sun and her. The king of the blazing sun was too strong. While it was only one attack, what was exposed was also so strong that it made her feel a little desperate. She even felt that even if she could join forces with the Dragon God Lord and the two legendary tier Lord talents to fight against the King of the Blazing Sun together, the chances of winning were very slim. Everyone clearly started at the same point. Why is the difference so big? The Insect Lord was very confused and afraid. She was afraid that the King of the Blazing Sun would find her again and kill her. With the King of the Blazing Sun's strength, it was very simple to do this. She was already severely injured and only had some Zerg cubs that could not form any reasonable combat strength under her command after all. If the King of the Blazing Sun came knocking on her door, she would have no room to resist. Even though there was still a large amount of genetic resources stored in her treasure vault that could be used to nurture newborn Zerg cubs and accelerate their growth to form combat strength, this would also take a lot of time. What she lacked the most now was time. She had no choice, so she did not even reply to the doubts about her on the World Channel. Instead, she focused on hiding here to recover her strength. At the same time, she silently prayed that the King of the Blazing Sun would not come over. She no longer cared about reputation and only wanted to survive now. As for the Dragon God Lord, she had also asked him for help. However, when the other party heard that the King of the Blazing Sun could actually come to her universe, he kept refusing to come, saying that he needed time to reorganize the dragon race. How could the Insect Lord not tell that the other party was afraid? He was afraid that he would be implicated and killed if he went over. But she had no choice and could only curse in her heart that the other party was a coward. At the same time, in the Night Empire, Yuling Palace. Princess Yuling was sitting on an exquisite throne, listening to the reports of the generals below. You're saying that there's a huge mysterious force leading nearly 500 million soldiers to eliminate those fog monster forces around the territory of our Night Empire? She asked in surprise after hearing the other party's report. Which faction is it? What else did they do other than clearing out the forces of the fog monsters? Yuling immediately asked. Nothing else other than clearing the fog monsters. As for which faction it is, I didn't dare to send troops forward to ask because the other party is protected by an expert. However, from the standard military uniforms on them, they seem to be from the Blazing Sun Kingdom. The general also looked hesitant towards the end. He really did not believe that a beginner Kingdom Lord faction that had just established a kingdom could send so many soldiers out to fight. What did it mean to have more than 500 million soldiers? That was triple the number of soldiers of their Night Empire. It was the size of ordinary intermediate-grade empires. However, this was the information obtained by the scouts. He could not lie. Blazing Sun Kingdom, Princess Yuling looked confused. Her first thought was, could some veteran Empire-level Lord faction have disguised themselves as soldiers of the Blazing Sun Kingdom and secretly come over to help them? She dismissed this idea in no time. Who would do something so thankless, not asking for anything in return, to appear in a world like the High Continent where war was frequent? Have the soldiers of the Blazing Sun Kingdom come to Whisper City today? Princess Yuling thought for a moment and asked. Yes. The other party also piloted a Machina race spaceship suspected to be at the God Spirit tier. And according to the scouts, that huge and magnificent God Spirit tier spaceship also exists among the nearly 500 million soldiers. The general said. Is there anything else worth noting? Yu Ling's eyes flickered as she asked. Also. According to the scouts' report, about 90% of those soldiers seem to be new recruits. Those human soldiers are also specially looking for the weak Scarlet Fog Monster faction to attack. Rather than saying that they're clearing the forces of the Fog Monsters, it's more like they're training their troops. The general voiced his guess. Princess Yu Ling pondered for a long time and looked at the general. Order our soldiers to prepare for battle. At the same time, send troops to come into contact with this faction. If the other party is really from the Blazing Sun Kingdom, make a request to support them. Since we're allies, how can we let the other party fight alone? If the other party is not from the Blazing Sun Kingdom or his answer is unclear, immediately retreat to the border fortress and prepare to defend against the enemy. Princess Yu Ling's expression was solemn. If this group of people was really allies, then the crisis of their Night Empire should be easily resolved. But if these people were enemies with ulterior motives, Princess Yu Ling's thoughts went wild. Then the Night Empire will probably be destroyed today. However, she believed in the former more. If the other party was really hostile, why would they beat around the bush with their terrifying military strength? If they attacked directly, their Night Empire would definitely not be able to stop them as long as they were not stingy with the lives of the recruits. 3 hours later, in the Blazing Sun Kingdom, Suen and Vicky returned with the resources of the 3 kingdoms. They handed the resource list to Zhou Zhou. When Zhou Zhou saw the list, he could not help but chuckle. The Dragon Lady Lord, the Undead Lord, and the Mystic Heaven Lord seemed to have discussed it halfway. Each of them handed over a third of the kingdom's wealth, which was 500 legendary tier mist cores. It was exactly the same as the 1/3 of the kingdom's wealth that the military industry lord had paid previously. We've discussed this in advance. Zhou Zhou smacked his lips. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 705 Using the Eye of the Heavens Anger Secret Law. Zhou Zhou's Enlightenment. Zhou Zhou did not mind. 500 legendary tier mist cores were about a third of the wealth of an ordinary beginner kingdom. It was just that they did not want to suffer a loss. There was no need to pursue it too much. Other than the 500 legendary tier mist cores, the Dragon Lady Lord also sent over 100 drakes with dragon bloodline according to the previous transaction conditions. Their strength ranged from green bronze tier elementary grade to white silver tier advanced grade. The Undead Lord also sent over a yellow gold tier advanced grade pure-blooded bone dragon according to the transaction conditions. As for the Mystic Heaven Lord, he had already begun to prepare to establish a branch of the Black Heaven sect in the Blazing Sun Kingdom and set up an Immortal Sect department to test the spiritual roots of the Blazing Sun Kingdom's subjects. The construction could officially begin when the two-way teleportation array was officially built tomorrow. The value of the kingdom token is very tempting to the current lord of the Cerulean planet. He'll get a few more kingdom tokens later. There are many lords with potential in the Cerulean planet. If I take this opportunity to sell the kingdom token, I can completely obtain a large number of rare resources and the support of a large number of lords with potential. Zhou Zhou thought. At this rate, while he might not be able to control all the lords of the Cerulean planet in the future, he could at least control more than 90% of the lords of the Cerulean planet. As for the mist cores, he did not care too much. A moment later, in a quiet room, Zhou Zhou closed his eyes and sat cross-legged on the futon to adjust his mental state. A moment later, he opened his eyes, and a glint of hidden feeling flashed across them. I have time now. It's time to try the Eye of the Heavens Anger Secret Law. Zhou Zhou took a deep breath and formed a hand seal called the Eye of the Heavens Anger in the Eye of the Heavens Anger Secret Law with both hands. After the hand seal was formed, Zhou Zhou immediately felt that his soul seemed to be attracted by a gentle force and was about to fly towards the unknown netherworld. He knew that this was a normal feeling when using the Eye of the Heavens Anger, so he did not resist and let this power guide his soul to the unknown land. During the flight, Zhou Zhou's panic, suspicion, fear, curiosity, and other emotions towards the unknown slowly disappeared. He was like a living being with a god's perspective. He calmly and coldly felt his soul and quietly waited for it to reach the end. After an unknown period of time, Zhou Zhou's soul finally arrived at its destination. It was pitch black here, yet it also seemed to contain countless colors. This place was chaotic. It was as if it had already derived all things. This place was extremely quiet. It was as if countless voices were shouting and chanting. All kinds of conflicting and harmonious strange feelings filled Zhou Zhou's soul consciousness. At first, Zhou Zhou felt that his soul was about to be torn apart and eaten by this strange feeling. But gradually, Zhou Zhou felt himself calm down. Like the origin of laws, he examined the world without emotion. And then he discovered the territory of the blazing Sun Kingdom from his perspective. His consciousness extended to the surroundings of the blazing Sun Kingdom. He also saw the strength of the other kingdoms, Lord factions, and Scarlet Fog. When he saw the Scarlet Fog faction, he suddenly felt a faint discomfort. When the refined flame Scarlet Legion appeared in his perspective, especially when he saw the Legion commander of the refined flame Scarlet Legion, the uncomfortable feeling in his heart immediately soared. It was as if there was a consciousness in his heart telling him to destroy it. As long as they destroyed the other party, the high continent would be protected, repaired, and corrected. It would become better. Zhou Zhou suddenly understood. There was an enemy in the refined flame Scarlet Legion that even the Supreme Will wanted to eliminate. As long as he destroyed him, he could obtain a large number of faction points in this King of 10,000 Kings event. He could even unlock an achievement. After Zhou Zhou found out about this, he was not too affected. Instead, he continued to explore into the distance. He could feel it. The range he could detect through the eye of the heaven's anger was definitely more than this. After more than 4 hours, Zhou Zhou's soul returned from the netherworld and entered his body again. His eyes were shockingly bright. It was not just because he had checked a total of 5 important fog monsters that the Supreme Will wanted to eliminate during the use of the Eye of the Heaven's anger. More importantly, when he observed the High Continent from the perspective of the Supreme Will, he comprehended the meaning of the Lord Law. Even though this meaning did not allow him to master any powerful Lord talent again, it made him understand why the Goddess of Life had said last time that his path was right, but his heart had gone the wrong way. Lord's Law, also known as the Supreme Law, Emperor's Law, God's Law, Control Law, I was so stupid. Why must I master the Hand of Wealth completely when I comprehend it? This way, even if I completely master the Lord's Law represented by the Hand of Wealth, won't the path I take as a God Spirit become a path to steal money? Isn't this like losing a watermelon and picking up a sesame seed? No matter what kind of Lord Law I comprehend, what I want to master in the end should be the Supreme Law, Great Tao of the Lord Law, not a part of it. Control. That's the key. I don't need to master the Lord Law behind every Lord talent. I just need to learn how to use these Lord Laws. Zhou Zhou looked excited. This was like solving a math problem. Students did not need to understand how the mathematical formula for solving the problem came about. He could still solve the problem as long as he knew how to use the mathematical formula rationally. Of course, even though that was the case. However, it did not mean that Zhou Zhou could not learn the incomplete Lord Law represented by the low-level Lord talent. This was because he was like a child who had just entered kindergarten when it came to the Lord Law. Even if he was given a lot of mathematical formulas, he would not be able to solve a high school mathematics problem. Not to mention the world problem. The current Zhou Zhou needed to start with the incomplete Lord Law behind the low-level Lord talent and slowly comprehend the mysteries of the Lord Law. After laying the foundation, he could better comprehend the more profound Lord Law and even control the entire Lord Law in the future. At the thought of this, Zhou Zhou immediately took out the Bodhi Supreme and activated the Supreme Eye. He began to comprehend the incomplete Lord Law represented by the Black Iron Tier Lord talent, hand of wealth. A moment later, Zhou, who was comprehending the Lord's law, looked delighted. He did not know if it was because his heart was in the right place, but when he comprehended the Lord's law again, he realized that his speed of comprehending the Lord's law was more than 10 times faster than yesterday. In Zhou's eyes, comprehending the Lord law represented by this hand of wealth Lord talent was as easy as eating and drinking. Perhaps I can comprehend higher-level Lord talents. Zhou thought arrogantly. Then, he quickly calmed down. Let's completely comprehend the incomplete Lord law behind the hand of wealth first. Zhou was very stable. Be it being a lord or comprehending the laws, in any case, he was only at the epic tier intermediate grade now. He would only touch the threshold of becoming a god when he reached the legendary tier advanced grade, so there was no need for him to be anxious. Time passed slowly. Zhou was still immersed in comprehending the Lord's law and could not extricate himself. This feeling of suddenly discovering that he was a good seedling really made him unable to stop after all. However, things didn't go as planned. Your Majesty. The refined flame Scarlet Legion has already advanced about 1,000 kilometers away from the border of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Atli walked in and reported respectfully to Zhou. Zhou suddenly opened his eyes. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 706 Fighting the Refined Flame Scarlet Legion, 1, Zhou looked at Bai Yun. How's the increase in the strength of the recruits? He asked. All of them have been upgraded to white-silver tier. Some with outstanding potential have even reached the yellow-gold tier. Bai Yun replied respectfully. A total of 450 million black iron tier elementary grade recruits had all advanced to the white-silver tier or even yellow-gold tier after all. In the eyes of others, this was probably a fantasy. However, with the help of the epic tier Lord Talent, War Master God, this matter became possible. Zhou nodded calmly. Even though white-silver tier and yellow-gold tier soldiers were still considered middle and lower-level combatants in the upcoming war, with the enhancement of equipment, skills, and military formations, it was enough for them to play their role in war. Come on. Prepare for battle. Zhou stood up and walked out of the advanced grade Lord's Paradise with Bai Yun. A moment later. About 900 kilometers away from the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Zhou and the others were riding a galaxy and stopping 10,000 meters in the sky. They were looking at the refined flame Scarlet Legion below through virtual external mode. Zhou looked at it for a while before turning to look at Haras and Zhe Wu. Gentlemen, did you encounter any accidents today? He asked. What accidents can we encounter with this galaxy around? They did fly here and want to destroy your Apocalypse Satellite 9, but they won't be able to do anything to us as long as we put the Apocalypse Satellite into the galaxy and fly away. We can only let your Apocalypse Satellite 9 continuously fire lasers at their army soldiers, injuring or even killing experts below the God Spirit level. Not only are we not injured at all after a day. The other party lost at least 100 legendary tier experts. As for the other fog monsters below the epic tier, more than 1,000 of them died. Haras laughed loudly. He still felt emotional when he said this. He did not expect the 10 Apocalypse Satellite 9 to be able to kill so many powerful fog monsters in just a day. Zhou smiled and nodded. As expected of the secret weapon given to him by the ultimate Lord Zhou. It did not disappoint him. In the end, he took a deep breath and looked at everyone solemnly. Everyone, prepare to fight. He said solemnly. Yes, Your Majesty. Everyone responded in unison. Your Majesty, do you have any means to deal with them? I'm talking about those scarlet god spirits. According to my observations throughout the day, there should be 7 scarlet god spirits among them. Moreover, there are 2 high-tier deity-level god spirits, 2 mid-tier deity-level god spirits, and 3 low-tier god spirits. It's not scary for them to fight alone, but if they attack together, I'm afraid no god spirit among us can withstand their joint offensive. Heraus looked at Zhou Zhou and said solemnly. In today's battle with the refined flame Scarlet Legion, they already had an absolute advantage in terms of normal soldiers. However, in terms of god spirit level combat strength, they occupied a considerable disadvantage. After all, other than Zhe Wu and him, there were only 3 god spirits on their side, including the local god spirit of the Blazing Sun Kingdom, Lady Iceflower, Vicky. On the other hand, there were a total of 7 scarlet god spirits, and there were many high-level god spirits among them. To be honest, this difference was a little big. If they could not deal with the enemy's scarlet god spirit combat strength, even if they could win this battle, the final outcome would probably be a tragic victory. Heraus also reminded him kindly. Zhou Zhou naturally understood what he meant. He nodded and said seriously, "Don't worry, I have my own way of dealing with them. If I really can't win, I'll ask those powerful factions to send god spirits to help. The Elven Empire, the Night Temple, and even the Night Empire that could not protect themselves." Zhou Zhou was confident that he could invite god spirit level allies from them to help. However, that was what he returned to do when he encountered a desperate situation. He wanted to see the limits of his soldiers now. Zhe Wu's eyes were dark and did not speak. Since His Majesty the General was so confident, there was no need to mention anything else. Then, they did not waste any time. Zhou Zhou first asked Wuxia to land the galaxy on the ground. Then, he released all 500 million soldiers from the galaxy and began to arrange their formation. At the same time, at the refined flame Scarlet Legion. In the middle of the army. A scarlet god spirit that was more than 10 meters tall and covered in a layer of golden-brown lava armor, had a cow-headed helmet on his head, and carried a huge void blade on his back, was sitting on a mighty mount that had the divinity of a rhinoceros. He was the Legion commander of the Scarlet Legion, Gerard. He was one of the 2 high-tier deity levels who had fought Heraus previously. At this moment, his expression was dark, as if he was in a very bad mood. What to do? No one would be in a good mood after being continuously attacked by the lasers in the sky for an entire day, causing more than 100 legendary tier Scarlet Fog experts and more than 1,000 experts below the epic tier to die. In addition, as the Legion commander of the Scarlet Legion, now that he had encountered such a thing, this matter would definitely become a small flaw in his expedition even if he conquered the entire Blazing Sun Kingdom. Gerard had the personality of a perfectionist. Therefore, he was already extremely dissatisfied and angry that he had been ambushed for a day. If not for the fact that you have that ridiculously fast Machina Ray spaceship, how could I let you launch a sneak attack so freely in the sky? If you have the ability, give up the spaceship and come down to fight. Gerard felt very aggrieved. They were clearly stronger than the other party. However, because the other party ran quickly, his side was completely in a situation of being beaten up. He had conquered countless enemy kingdoms for the Fei Du Scarlet Empire. This was the first time in so many years that he had suffered so much grievance. The key was that there was no way to counterattack. This was because the refined flame Scarlet Legion and the Fei Du Scarlet Empire behind them had indeed not developed any super powerful spaceship technology as a pure demon empire. Not every Lord faction developed so comprehensively like the Blazing Sun Kingdom. The refined flame Scarlet Legion was a classic combat army. The main way for the army to increase the combat strength of the army was to kill more enemies and absorb more promotion energy to constantly increase their strength realm. Other than that, it would increase enhancement from time to time in terms of armors and weapons. There was almost nothing else that could increase the combat strength of the army. For example, a spaceship. Damn the Blazing Sun Kingdom. I will definitely kill all the subjects of the Blazing Sun Kingdom after we arrive. Gerard gritted his teeth. At this moment, an extraordinary tier Void Spirit Scout teleported over and arrived in front of him. Lord Legion Commander. A large army suddenly appeared ahead. It should be an army from the Blazing Sun Kingdom from the way they are armed. It reported. Gerard was stunned. Then, he immediately laughed softly with a ferocious expression. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 707 Fighting the Refined Flame Scarlet Legion, 2, Good, good, very good. I knew they wouldn't just stand there and wait for death. It's even better since you dare to leave the city to fight. ITLL saved them from using the advantage of the city wall to block our offensive. All troops, listen up. Speed up. The soldiers of the Blazing Sun Kingdom are waiting for us to slaughter them. We can return to find the king and the Crimson Overlord to receive the rewards once we kill these damn human brats. He shouted angrily. His voice spread throughout the entire Refined Flame Scarlet Legion. Nearly 75% of the soldiers of the Refined Flame Scarlet Legion were excited. They raised their weapons with ferocious expressions and kept shouting. At the same time, they increased their speed and quickly advanced in the direction of the Blazing Sun Army. The eyes of the remaining Refined Flame Scarlet Legion flickered. They hid their abnormalities and quickly advanced towards the Blazing Sun Kingdom's army like the other soldiers. On the other side, when the scout in front of Gerard heard that the Legion commander had already ordered an offensive, he immediately said, Legion commander, I'm not done yet. Is there any other information? Gerard, who had originally planned to fly to the front, frowned and looked at it. He was about to be the first to rush to the other party's soldiers, pluck the King of the Blazing Sun's head, and obtain the chief credit for this battle. This way, he might be able to obtain more rewards from the Crimson Overlord. Reporting to the Legion commander, they had more than 500 million troops. The scout immediately reported. However, the other party's soldiers are a little strange. It said in a low voice. More than 400 million of them seem to be new recruits. The strongest are only at the white-silver tier and yellow-gold tier. Only the remaining tens of millions of soldiers are equivalent to the level of our army, but there aren't many God-Spirit level enemies. When Gerard heard the other party say that the army of the Blazing Sun Kingdom had more than 500 million soldiers, he was shocked. However, when he heard the latter half of the sentence, he thought for a moment before laughing out loud. Then the King of the Blazing Sun must have known that he was about to face a calamity, so he sent all the subjects in his country as soldiers. Where would he get so many soldiers otherwise? Don't worry about it, these soldiers who were pulled up at the last minute are militias at most. They don't have much combat strength. They're just useless in front of the elite soldiers of our Refined Flame Scarlet Legion. Gerard said calmly. In addition, what made he more confident was, there were clearly many more Scarlet God spirits on their side than the other party. God spirits were existences that could play a huge role in war. Therefore, even if the other party had many soldiers, firstly, their combat strength was not high, and secondly, they were protected by the God spirits, so he was actually not too worried. Yes, Legion Commander. The Void Spirit Scout did not say anything else and retreated silently. Seeing this, Gerard rode his mount into the sky and led the Refined Flame Scarlet Legion towards the soldiers of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. A moment later, the two armies arrived less than 50 kilometers away from each other. Both sides were soldiers made up of extraordinary tier people. Even though they were far away, they could at least see the enemy's location. King of the Blazing Sun. Put down your weapons obediently and accept your death. Our Fido's Scarlet Empire can let the normal subjects of your Blazing Sun Kingdom live, but it will transform the living beings on our side of the fog. Otherwise, we will definitely slaughter the entire city after we break through your territory. Gerard rode on his mount and floated high in the sky, sending a cold voice transmission to Zhou Zhou and the soldiers behind him. Soon, his voice spread to the ears of more than 500 million soldiers and even subjects in the entire Blazing Sun Kingdom. When the soldiers heard this, not only did they not retreat, their eyes became even colder. At this moment, Zhou Zhou also flew into the sky and looked calmly at the Legion commander of the Scarlet Legion, Gerard. "I'll give you a chance to put down your weapons and surrender obediently. As long as you're willing to surrender, I can let bygones be bygones and let you become subjects of my Blazing Sun Kingdom. Once you become subjects of the Blazing Sun Kingdom, I can treat you as equals and let you enjoy the benefits that the Blazing Sun Kingdom subjects enjoy now." There was still no movement from the Refined Flame Scarlet Legion when this was mentioned. The soldiers of the Blazing Sun Kingdom, especially the soldiers of the people of foreign races, looked at Zhou Zhou with even more respect, fanaticism, and anticipation. The reason why they were willing to work wholeheartedly for the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Putting aside the reason for the Lord Talent of the peaceful times, the King of the Blazing Sun had always been willing to treat people of foreign races like them equally, or even enemy country subjects. This was one of the important reasons why they were willing to follow the King of the Blazing Sun. If it was another kingdom faction, there was a high chance that they would not do that. There might even be a class system among them and treat them differently. This was not just a guess. Most of the powerful Lord factions in the High Continent did this to the subjects of different races in their territory, or even to the subjects of the enemy Lord faction. At the same time, Gerard also heard what the King of the Blazing Sun said. He sneered, clearly very disdainful of him. "I knew you were one tough cookie. I'll capture you myself later. Let's see if you will still be this insolent." Zhou Zhou's expression became even calmer. The two of them looked at each other. "Kill! Kill!" The two of them said these words almost at the same time, and the soldiers on both sides roared and rushed towards each other. Soon, both sides exchanged weapons and fought. Zhou Zhou's side had more than 5 times the number of soldiers. However, there were 450 million white silver tier and yellow gold tier recruits among the 500 million soldiers after all. Therefore, while it seemed that Zhou Zhou's soldiers had surrounded all the other party's soldiers, it did not pose much of a threat to the other party. Gerard chuckled when he saw this, and the disdain at the corners of his mouth became even stronger. But in the next second, his expression immediately changed. On the battlefield in front of him, he saw more than 27 million of the 110 million soldiers. Refined Flame Scarlet Legion soldiers suddenly changed their attitude and turned to kill their allies beside them. A quarter of the soldiers suddenly rebelling was not a small matter. At this moment, the entire Scarlet Army immediately fell into chaos under the collision of internal and external forces. High up in the sky, Zhou Zhou smiled when he saw this. It was him who ordered the incite defection on the more than 27 million soldiers in the other party's army to suddenly fight among themselves just now. This method was really effective and exciting to use no matter how many times he had used it. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 708 Fighting the Refined Flame Scarlet Legion, 3, What Happened? Gerard was shocked when he saw this, but he quickly reacted. He looked at Zhou Zhou coldly. He knew that this must be the other party's method. Soldiers on the periphery, continue to block the enemy's soldiers' offensive. Kill the betrayers of our own army without mercy. Gerard immediately ordered decisively. As the order was passed down, Scarlet soldiers who had been instigated by Zhou Zhou's incite defection were beaten up and killed one after another. However, they would also try their best to take down one or more soldiers of the Fog Army before they died. In addition, Zhou Zhou's Blazing Sun Kingdom soldiers were constantly exerting pressure on them from the periphery. A large number of Scarlet Fog soldiers from the Refined Flame Scarlet Legion, which was trapped in a pincer attack from both inside and outside, fell on the battlefield one after another. All Scarlet God spirits immediately mobilized to suppress the internal strife. At the same time, destroy the enemy soldiers and reduce the pressure on our side. Gerard gave another order again, seeing that the situation was turning bad. Then, as soon as he finished speaking, he took the lead and rushed out to kill the soldiers of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Seeing this, the other Scarlet God spirits also flew over, preparing to help their soldiers defeat the soldiers of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. But at this moment, a God spirit burning with the light of the blazing sun suddenly appeared in front of Gerard. He held the fire source shield in his left hand and the divine fire glazed axe in his right. His divine eyes were as dazzling as two suns. It was the god of blazing sun and burns, Heraus. Let's continue our unfinished battle. This time, no outsiders will interfere in our battle. One of us will definitely die today. Hera said to him with full fighting spirit. He was willing to put his life and death aside even if he was not fighting for the Blazing Sun Kingdom when facing a rare opponent. Crazy. Gerard cursed in his heart. He hated this group of god spirits who walked the path of the solar system's laws. Once they started fighting, they would not care about their lives. Why don't they cherish the god spirit slots that they had painstakingly obtained? Gerard had no intention of fighting the other party at all, wanting nothing but to stay away from this lunatic. However, Heraus was clearly targeting him. No matter how he dodged, Heraus would always catch up to him immediately and attack him crazily, forcing him to attack. Gerard could only fight him first in this situation. At the same time, the other Scarlet God Spirit of the Void Spirit Demon race holding a dark blue ferocious bow also saw Gerard's current situation. However, he had no intention of interfering. Instead, he decided to continue resolving the predicament on the battlefield. At this moment, Lady Ice Flower, Vicky and the god of the snowfield and White Wolf had already rushed in front of him and blocked his path. "We are your opponent," Zhe Wu said calmly. Even though the other party was a high-tier deity-level god spirit, Vicky and him were both wearing low-tier divine artifacts. Even if they could not kill the other party, they could still hold the other party back and not let him join the battle. Courting death. This high-tier deity-level intermediate-grade void spirit demon race Scarlet God Spirit was furious when it saw a mid-tier deity-level elementary-grade God Spirit and a low-tier deity-level elementary-grade God Spirit trying to stop it. Without thinking, he immediately retreated and pulled away. At the same time, he drew his bow and arrow, preparing to quickly destroy the two God Spirits who did not know what was good for them. However, Zhe Wu was very experienced in combat. Don't let him pull away. It's an archer-type god spirit. Once the other party widens the distance, all of his offensive methods will be greatly enhanced. However, as long as we close the distance between us and the other party, his strength will be halved or even more. Zhe Wu shouted and took out the White Wolf's tooth to rush over. Vicky followed Zhe Wu and attacked without hesitation. The two sides immediately fought in the air. At the same time, the other 5 Scarlet God Spirits also rushed towards the battlefield below. Among the 5 Scarlet God Spirits, 2 were mid-tier deity level and 3 were low-tier deity level. Thick spatial power erupted, forming a spatial passageway with endless suction behind it, directly sucking it into the spatial rift. 3 figures flew out from the Blazing Sun Kingdom and charged at the 5 Scarlet God Spirits. Among them, Qi Xiantian and Guo Qiao each faced a mid-tier deity-level Scarlet God Spirit. The 10-directional Martial Emperor, Feng Luo, was facing the low-tier deity-level elementary-grade Storm Fist God, Zhao Qingkong. The two sides immediately began to fight. At this scene, the other 2 Scarlet God Spirits looked at each other and smiled sinisterly. The other party shouldn't have the combat strength of a God Spirit anymore. Then let the 2 of us show these low-level life forms what true slaughter is. One of the low-tier deity-level elementary-grade Scarlet God Spirits said. The other low-tier deity intermediate-grade Scarlet God Spirit nodded coldly. In the distance, Zhou Zhou looked at the 2 Scarlet God Spirits and turned to look at Bai Yun. "How's the mastery of the military formation?" he asked. "Your Majesty, that low-tier deity-level intermediate-grade military formation," small God Sura myriad spirit army formation, is very difficult. It's also very difficult for me to completely master it for the time being. However, I can still set up this military formation with its military formation treasure, small God Sura sword. Bai Yun said respectfully. Zhou Zhou nodded slightly. Zhou Zhou could tell that Bai Yun was very talented in military formations when she comprehended the Greedy Wolf Howling Moon Array's hero skill, the Greedy Wolf Devouring Arrow, alone. She was not inferior to Wu Xian. She only used a day to set up this low-tier deity-level intermediate-grade small God Sura myriad spirit army formation. It was enough to see her military formation talent. Go on, you're in charge of dealing with one of these two scarlet god spirits. Zhou Zhou said. Yes, your majesty. Bai Yun said respectfully. Then, she immediately flew out and specially mobilized 100,000 extraordinary tier soldiers from the 500 million strong army and asked them to surround her. These 100,000 extraordinary tier soldiers had all practiced the small God Sura myriad spirit army formation with Bai Yun when she was familiarizing with it today. They also had the energy to successfully set up the array. It was the time for them to attack. Seeing that everyone was here, Bai Yun activated the small God Sura myriad spirit army formation without hesitation. A large amount of silver sword energy emerged from every extraordinary tier soldier and quickly gathered. Right on the heels of that, a huge figure of a mysterious swordsman, who was 10,000 meters tall and wearing a silver raincoat, holding a silver divine sword, surrounded by silver sword energy, appeared above the 100,000 extraordinary tier soldiers, enveloping them in his body. It was the spirit of the small god myriad spirit army formation, the god spirit swordsman. It was equivalent to the greedy wolf spirit that appeared when setting up the greedy wolf howling moon array. The next second, this god spirit swordsman raised the sura in his hand and waved it gently at the two scarlet god spirits charging towards the battlefield. Whoosh! A silver translucent sword energy shot out and suddenly disappeared when it flew into the air. Then, it appeared in front of one of the scarlet god spirits in the blink of an eye and instantly severed its arm. The two scarlet god spirits were shocked. At the same time, at the core of the Sura swordsman's formation, Bai Yun held the treasure of the military formation, small god Sura sword, in her hand and calmly took out 1,000 legendary tier hearts of materials. She asked the carving of the small god Sura sword in her hand to quickly absorb them all. After absorbing them all, this small god Sura sword carving emitted a faint silver sword energy light again. Seeing this, Bai Yun controlled the Sura swordsman again without hesitation, and released another low-tier deity-level intermediate-grade sword energy at the two scarlet god spirits. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 709 Fighting the Refined Flame Scarlet Legion. 4. The two scarlet god spirits knew how powerful this sword chi was. They hurriedly dodged to the sides, however, this sword chi seemed to have locked onto them. No matter where they flew, this sword chi could immediately turn and fly towards them. They even hid in the interlayer of space, wanting to avoid the sword chi, but it even rushed into the interlayer of space, wanting to kill them. They looked at each other and could feel the trouble with this sword chi. They could only join forces to resist it. After the two gods did their best to block the sword chi, they were about to heave a sigh of relief when they saw another sword chi shoot towards them. Even though the sword chi of this military formation is strong, it's not to the extent that I can't block it. How about this? I'll block the sword chi of this military formation. You go and destroy the main body of the military formation. As long as we destroy the main body of the military formation, they won't be able to release such sword chi attacks again. At that time, we can slaughter the remaining Blazing Sun Kingdom soldiers at will. The low-tier deity-level intermediate-grade Scarlet God Spirit quickly calmed down and said, "Okay." The other low-level deity-level Scarlet God Spirit also felt that there was no problem. Without hesitation, He held a blue ancient broken blade and flew towards the Sura swordsman. In the sky, Zhou Zhou, who had been observing the battlefield, naturally saw this scarlet god spirit that wanted to ambush the spirit of the military formation. His expression was calm. With a flip of his right hand, a huge halberd appeared in his hand. The halberd was another loot that Zhou Zhou had obtained from the fog monster when he obtained the ghost god general hero inheritance, the ghost god demon slaying halberd. Equipment name, Ghost God Demon Slaying Halberd. Equipment grade, Epic Tier Intermediate grade. Equipment effect 1, Demon Slaying. Demon God Demon Slaying Halberd's lethality to fog monsters increases by 300%. Equipment effect 2, Ghost God Evil Spirit. When the user uses the Ghost God Demon Slaying Halberd, their body will be filled with Ghost God Evil Spirit. Life forms with weak resistance will feel as if they have seen a ghost god in the human world when they see the user. At best, they will feel fear in their hearts, and at worst, they will die from fear. Equipment effect 3, Ghost God Demon Slaying Halberd. After the user obtains the recognition of the Ghost God Demon Slaying Halberd, they will automatically inherit a combat method from the ghost god. After mastering this combat method, it can greatly increase the combat power of the Ghost God Demon Slaying Halberd. Equipment effect 4, Ghost God on Earth. Sacrifice the Ghost God Demon Slaying Halberd and summon a low-tier deity-level ghost god to reappear in the world. You will bear the consequences. According to the equipment information, this ghost god should only attack the fog monsters. It shouldn't attack us. Zhou Zhou looked at the halberd and thought. There was another reason why he was willing to use this halberd without worry. His danger prediction talent and talent intuition lord talent were vaguely reminding him that using this halberd would not cause him any harm. There might even be benefits. Zhou Zhou believed in his two talents, especially the latter. Talents could go wrong, however, it was almost impossible for his lord talent to be wrong. This was his experience as a lord with 29 lord talents. Let me see what a real ghost god looks like. Zhou Zhou said softly. Then, he silently activated the sacrifice in his heart and threw it to the scarlet god spirit that was rushing towards the spirit of the military formation. What is it? The scarlet god spirit quickly discovered the epic tier weapon that was thrown at it. He was very cautious and did not dare to receive the ghost god demon slaying record. Instead, he released an energy ball and shattered it in the air. However, just as he was shattering it, boom! The ghost god demon slaying halberd exploded with a bang, and a large amount of pale white fog spread out. A tall and terrifying figure appeared from the pale white fog and slowly walked towards the scarlet god spirit. When the scarlet god spirit saw the figure in the fog, it suddenly felt fear and a feeling as if it had encountered an old enemy. Who is that? He picked up his ancient blue blade and watched with hostility as the figure walked out of the white fog. What are you doing? Hurry up and destroy the main body of that military formation. In the distance, the scarlet god spirit, which was resisting the sword chi, cursed when it saw that this scarlet god spirit was actually just standing on the spot. However, his voice was ignored by the other party at the moment. His attention was all on the figure that was about to walk out of the pale white fog. Soon, the figure appeared wearing tattered pale white armor. White bones could be vaguely seen through the cracks of the tattered pale white armor. It had 4 white bone heads that protruded from its dinosaur-like mouth and 8 arms. The 8 arms held 8 ancient and tattered weapons, namely a halberd, bell, cauldron, drum, mace, spear, bow, and dagger. It stood in front of the pale white fog, its black eyes looking at the world in front of it. Then, it looked at Zhou Zhou and paused for a moment before nodding respectfully. Then, its gaze swept across Qi Xiantian, Guoqiao, Wu Tu, Bai Yun, Feng Luo, and the others. Finally, its gaze landed on the low-tier deity-level elementary-grade scarlet god spirit that had shattered the ghost god demon slaying halberd. Demon, its voice was hoarse. Boom! Its body suddenly disappeared. Boom! Its body suddenly appeared in front of the Scarlet God Spirit again. You are. Before this Scarlet God Spirit could finish speaking, the 8 weapons on the Ghost God's 8 arms suddenly emitted the light of various divine artifacts. Then, they smashed, stabbed, slashed, and slashed at its body. The Scarlet God Spirit that was hit by the 8 divine artifacts at the same time fell silent before it could even finish speaking. On the battlefield, all the God Spirits fighting, Qi Xiantian, Guo and the others were stunned. One strike and it killed a low-tier deity-level elementary grade Scarlet God Spirit. What kind of joke was this? The aura emitted by the other party was clearly that of a low-tier deity-level elementary grade God Spirit. But how could there be such a strong low-tier deity-level elementary grade God Spirit? Killing experts of the same level looked even easier than killing dogs. In the sky, Zhou was also shocked by the other party's combat strength. Previously, when he offered sacrifices to the ghost god demon slaying halberd, he only wanted to increase his combat strength by 1 low-tier deity-level elementary grade god spirit. He seemed to have released a boss from the situation in front of him. Moreover, while the other party seemed to be using 8 broken-looking weapons. If Zhou did not feel it wrongly, they seemed to be 8 different low-tier deity-level elementary grade divine artifacts. Moreover, even though the other party's armor was tattered, it was actually also a divine artifact, making it a full set of divine artifacts. Zhou could be mistaken if it was anything else, however, he had too many divine artifacts and was therefore confident that he would not make a mistake. This ghost god has at least 10 divine artifacts that are compatible with the other party's strength. Zhou guessed in his heart. He took a deep breath. Then, he looked at the other party's information. Name. Territory. Soldier type, Ghost God. Grade, Strength level, low-tier deity level elementary grade, ability overview, a soldier who came from a mysterious training ground. He was born to slaughter scarlet fog monsters. He was born opposing the Crimson Overlord and the fog monsters under his command. He had endless hatred and an almost undying body. Skill. Grade, Scarlet Reaper. Grade, Undead Vengeful Spirit. Grade, Low-tier deity level elementary grade physical immunity. Grade, low-tier deity level elementary grade elemental immunity. Grade, low-tier deity level elementary grade soul immunity. Talent, 8-armed ghost deity. Talent, ghost deity killing spirit. Talent, fear power. Low-tier deity level elementary grade demon extermination halberd technique. Loyalty. Potential. Prompt, this ghost god is very respectful to you and your lord faction as you are favored by the supreme will. It will not attack you and your lord faction. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 710 Fighting the Refined Flame Scarlet Legion. 5. Zhou raised his eyebrows. So many question marks. The last time he saw so many question marks was on Bai He. This guy was clearly only at the low-tier deity level elementary grade, but he actually had so many unexplorable secrets. Moreover, that last notification was worth thinking about. This ghost god soldier type is probably from the supreme will, Zhou guessed in his heart. At the same time, just as he was guessing in his heart, the situation on the battlefield had also changed greatly. After the ghost god killed the low-tier deity level elementary grade scarlet god spirit, its gaze shifted and landed on the low-tier deity intermediate grade scarlet god spirit that was fighting the Sura swordsman. He did not say a word and flew straight at him. This scarlet god spirit also saw the ghost god rushing towards it. He was immediately shocked and gave up on this place and fled in the direction of Gerard without a second thought. Legion Commander, save me, he shouted in panic. However, Gerard only had time to take a look at him before he was dragged into the entangled battle by the battle-crazed Heros. During the battle, a few furious curses from Gerard, such as "damn it" and "bastard," could be heard. Seeing this, the Scarlet God Spirit could only rush towards the other Scarlet God Spirit. But at this moment, a pale white skeleton figure appeared in front of him as if it had teleported. It was the Ghost God. The Scarlet God Spirit was shocked. Then, it turned around and ran without thinking. However, just as it turned around, a Shinra sword chi shot over from afar and slashed at him, who was caught off guard. Half of the Scarlet God Spirit's body drooped outside and it was almost cut in half. Even so, the aura on his body was already infinitely close to death. When the Ghost God saw the Scarlet God Spirit so close and on the verge of death, it did not choose to attack. Instead, it looked at the Sura swordsman, as if it had seen Bai Yun at the core. Bai Yun was stunned. Then, he immediately understood. She injected 1,000 legendary tier mist cores into the small god sword in her hand again. Then, she controlled the crowd control swordsman Shinra to release another Shinra sword chi to kill this dying Scarlet God Spirit. At this moment, the surging promotion energy immediately surged into Bai Yun's body. Bai Yun almost immediately broke through to the legendary tier and came very close to the legendary tier advanced grade. Not only that, even thousands of the 100,000 extraordinary tier soldiers who formed the small God Sura myriad spirit army formation broke through at this moment, as if they had benefited greatly. A god spirit had died and it gave such terrifying benefits. In the sky, Zhou Zhou felt his aura and a faint smile appeared on his face. He had also broken through to the epic tier advanced grade. How rare! He had finally broken through. A lord's breakthrough was really 10,000 times harder than ordinary life forms. He complained in his heart. Then, he looked at the battle in front of him. At this moment, 2 of the 7 god spirits of the flame-refining Scarlet Legion had already died. There were only 2 high-tier deity-level Scarlet God Spirits, 2 mid-tier deity-level Scarlet God Spirits, and 1 low-tier deity-level Scarlet God Spirit left. Among them, the 10-directional martial emperor, Feng Luo, was using his legendary tier elementary grade body to fight against the low-tier deity-level tsunami fist god, Zhao Qingkong. When Zhou Zhou looked over, he was stunned to discover that the 2 of them were actually fighting to the death. Even though Zhao Qingkong had a certain advantage, at this moment, Feng Luo seemed to have fallen into a state of epiphany. During the battle with the other party, his improvement could be said to be extremely fast, and he was gradually catching up to the other party. Zhou Zhou wanted to ask Bai Yun, who had free time, to help him. However, Zhou Zhou dismissed this idea in the current situation. This opportunity seemed to be a rare opportunity for Feng Luo to increase his strength. Perhaps it was the best choice for the other party if he did not interfere. He looked at the other battlefields. Haras and Gerard were fighting to the death. Even though Haras had a divine artifact on him, Gerard's own strength as a high-tier deity-level intermediate grade and a high-tier deity-level divine artifact basically eliminated the difference in combat strength between them. The other 2 god spirits, Zhe Wu and Vicky, fought another high-tier deity level with their divine artifacts. Fortunately, I temporarily lent Vicky another low-tier deity-level elementary grade divine artifact before I came. Otherwise, he might really not be able to stop him with the low-tier deity-level elementary grade divine artifact I rewarded him with previously. Zhou Zhou thought. Then, he looked at Qi Xiantian and Guo Qiao and his expression became solemn. Unlike the others, Qi Xiantian and Guo Qiao were only legendary tier experts now. And the opponents they faced were all mid-tier deity-level scarlet monsters. The difference in strength between the 2 sides was not small. Even though they had a history of killing gods before, that was only an enemy who had just entered the low-tier deity-level elementary grade. Now, even if they advanced from the previous epic tier to the legendary tier, the difference in strength was still too great when facing a mid-tier deity-level Scarlet God Spirit who was even stronger and more experienced in combat. If not for the fact that Zhou Zhou had used the Ice Demon Sacrificial Robe to set up a low-tier deity-level elementary grade defense law skill on the 2 of them, they would have been in a dire situation already. But even so, Qi Xiantian was already showing signs of defeat. It was only a matter of time before they lost. Wuxia was in an even worse state. He was directly beaten to death without becoming stiff, which was a fake death state. For the next period of time, if they could not defeat that mid-tier deity-level Scarlet God Spirit and let Wuxia bathe in the divine blood, he would really die completely after his death. When the time comes, he could only use the Great Resurrection spell to help the other party. Bai Yun and Your Excellency the Ghost God. Can you help my subordinate? Zhou Zhou sent voice transmissions to Bai Yun and the Ghost God while pointing in the direction of Qi Xiantian. Bai Yun controlled the small God Sura myriad spirit army formation to attack Qi Xiantian without hesitation. The Ghost God took a look and rushed towards Qi Xiantian. Wuxiao saw this scene. Zhou Zhou smiled, then his expression became solemn. He raised his right hand, and as the chaotic origin energy in his body continuously surged out, a chaotic spear finally condensed after condensing a total of 70% of the chaotic origin energy. It was the chaos flying spear technique. Go! Zhou Zhou threw it forcefully and the chaos flying spear shot towards the mid-tier deity-level Scarlet God Spirit that Qi Xiantian was fighting. It was extremely fast and arrived in front of the Scarlet God Spirit in the blink of an eye. Qi Xiantian, who had long received His Majesty's voice transmission, retreated dozens of kilometers and made way. The Scarlet God Spirit also discovered the chaos flying spear. He felt a sense of threat. He instinctively wanted to dodge without thinking. But at this moment, Wuxiao, use your full strength. You can use the dragon-slaying will. Zhou Zhou shouted. Ha 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 ha, Wuxiao, who had entered a fake death state, immediately had bloodshot eyes when he heard this. I'm really, so aggrieved. His suppressed voice suddenly became hearty. Bang, 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 bang. The aura on his body suddenly erupted. Under the dumbfounded gaze of the other party's Scarlet God Spirit, Wuxiao's strength seemed to have no upper limit as it quickly increased. Legendary Tier Advanced Grade. Low Tier Deity Level Elementary Grade. Low Tier Deity Level Intermediate Grade. Mid-Tier Deity Level Elementary Grade. Mid-Tier Deity Level Intermediate Grade. When Wuxiao's strength reached the mid-tier deity level intermediate grade, his explosive strength slowly stopped. Then, he looked up at the Scarlet God Spirit with its blood-red eyes. Did you have a good time fighting? The next second, he brazenly threw a law skill level flying axe attack. Facing the flying axe that arrived in an instant, the Scarlet God Spirit's head was cut off before it could react. Even so, he was not dead either. The flesh on his severed neck kept rolling, as if he was going to regrow his severed head. At this moment, Wuxiao flew over and grabbed the flying chaos flying spear. Then, he pierced through the other party's body and grabbed his body. Then, under the shocked gazes of all the soldiers, he forcefully tore it into two. This mid-tier deity-level Scarlet God Spirit that had previously suppressed Wuxiao died immediately. Wuxiao was not done yet. Instead, he poured his divine blood on his injured body. Not only did Wuxiao's injuries quickly recover after bathing in the divine blood, even the aura on his body began to increase again. Mid-tier deity-level Advanced Grade. High-tier deity-level Elementary Grade. When his aura reached the high-tier deity-level Elementary Grade, even the three high-tier deity levels who were fighting fiercely on the field were attracted. They looked at Wuxiao in surprise. When did another high-tier deity level appear on the battlefield? In the sky, when Zhou Zhou saw that Wuxiao's strength had reached the high-tier deity level elementary grade, a smile appeared on his face. Even though Wuxiao's current strength was only temporarily enhanced by the dragon-slaying will, it was enough to determine the outcome of this battle. The subsequent battle was not beyond Zhou Zhou's expectations. With the addition of Wuxiao, a high-tier deity-level elementary-grade combatant who had suddenly appeared. They first destroyed the mid-tier deity-level elementary-grade Scarlet God spirits that Qi Xiantian and the others were facing. Then, he went to support Vicky and Zhe Wu and joined forces to kill the high-tier deity-level creature they were facing. In the end, he killed Gerard with the unwilling Heras. Then, they arrived around Feng Luo and surrounded him and Zhao Qingkong. They watched as the helpless Zhao Qingkong was forcefully beaten to death by Feng Luo, who had made a huge advancement in martial arts. At this point, the god spirits on the refined flame Scarlet Legion side had already been completely destroyed. The remaining Scarlet Legion monsters were all below the legendary tier. To Zhou Zhou's soldiers, it was only a matter of time before they were destroyed. Zhou Zhou could basically declare victory in this battle. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 711 Guo Qiao and Feng Luo advanced to the God Spirit realm. On the battlefield, the morale of the soldiers of the refined flame Scarlet Legion had already dissipated by more than half. A quarter of their comrades suddenly rebelled and aimed their weapons at their own people after all. Then, they had no choice but to raise their butcher's knives to kill their comrades before destroying the enemy. During this process, their Lord God Spirit chose to attack brazenly in order to help the legionaries out. This was originally something that gave them hope, but in the end, the God Spirits that they regarded as incomparably powerful were actually killed one by this beginner kingdom that had just established a kingdom a few days ago and did not even have many God Spirits. An existence of a God Spirit, without a doubt, it was the greatest spiritual pillar of the refined flame Scarlet Legion other than the Empire. Now that their mental support had fallen, they naturally had no intention of fighting. Some of the smart soldiers of the Fog Monster army even felt that the Scarlet Empire behind them was probably finished. Most of the God Spirits of the Scarlet Empire were in the refined flame Scarlet Legion after all. Now, the God Spirits of the Scarlet Legion had been completely wiped out. It also meant that there were not many top combatants left in the Scarlet Empire. Next, if its enemy Scarlet Kingdoms found out about this, they would probably rush over without hesitation and devour that particular Scarlet Empire. Within the territory of the Crimson Overlord, the intensity of the Scarlet Lords fighting for territory was not inferior to the intensity of the Lords under the Supreme Will. In fact, it was even more intense. At the thought of this, many soldiers were even more confused. What the hell is going on? We're only attacking a beginner kingdom. How did we destroy the Scarlet Empire behind us? Things shouldn't have developed like this. On the other side, even though Zhou Zhou did not know what these Scarlet soldiers were thinking, it did not affect his mood at all. For the past 2 days, the refined flame Scarlet Legion had always been a shadow on his heart. Now, this shadow that he had once found very difficult to resist had actually been dealt with by him. How could he not feel relaxed and happy? Zhou Zhou casually put away the Knight's Sacred Token and the Elven Sacred Token. Originally, he had planned to ask these two forces for help if the situation was not right. From the looks of it, there was probably no more need for that. Then, he looked at the generals, lords, Vicky, Heras, Zhe Wu, and the ghost god around him. Finally, his gaze landed on the ghost god. "Thank you for your help in this war, Your Excellency," he said politely. As soon as these words were spoken, all the generals and god spirits looked curiously at this ferocious and majestic ghost god. They were also very curious about this ghost god who had suddenly descended on the battlefield. Even Heras and Zhe Wu, the two experienced high-tier deity level and mid-tier deity level, were no exception. He was clearly only a low-tier deity level elementary grade god spirit. However, he was wearing at least 10 low-tier deity level elementary grade divine artifacts. What kind of background gave him this amount of arrogance? Even the sons of gods of powerful pantheon groups with true god tier probably didn't have such treatment, right? The ghost god seemed to have ignored everyone's surprised and curious gazes. He bowed slightly to Zhou Zhou, his attitude unexpectedly respectful. Then, he glanced at the successor of the Ghost God General, Luo Sheng. He flew in front of him and raised his right hand. Wisps of pale white fog condensed in his hand. After a long time, a new Ghost God Demon slaying halberd appeared in his hand. He handed it to Luo Sheng. Luo Sheng was stunned. "Is this, for me?" He hesitated. The Ghost God nodded. Luo Sheng looked at Zhou Zhou, who came back to his senses and nodded slightly. "Thank you very much." Luo Sheng took it politely with both hands. Then, he looked at the information of the new Ghost God Demon slaying halberd and was immediately pleasantly surprised. This was because this new Ghost God Demon slaying halberd had actually become a rare weapon that was enhanceable. Even though he could only grow to the low-tier deity level elementary grade, this also meant that as long as he broke through to the low-tier deity level elementary grade, he would directly possess a divine artifact that was quite compatible with his low-tier deity level elementary grade ranking. The only regret was that the effect of Ghost God on Earth had disappeared. In the future, he would no longer be able to summon this powerful low-tier deity level elementary grade Ghost God by sacrificing the Ghost God Demon slaying halberd. "Your Excellency, are you going to?" Zhou Zhou also saw the information about the new Ghost God Demon slaying halberd. He guessed something and looked at the Ghost God. The Ghost God nodded slightly and sent a message to Zhou Zhou. Then, he ignored everyone's reaction and flew into the distance before quickly disappearing. Where is he going? Haras was stunned. The others also looked in the direction it had left. He wants to return to the place where he was born and continue fighting the Scarlet Fog monsters with his kind. Zhou Zhou explained to everyone according to the message the other party sent him before he left. Everyone nodded. Zhou Zhou did not think too much about it. This god spirit that clearly came from a mysterious background was clearly not something he could subdue at this stage. Even though he felt a little regretful about the departure of this ghost god, he did not care too much. Then, his gaze landed on Guoqiao and Feng Luo, and a smile appeared on his face. "I haven't congratulated you yet. You finally reached the god spirit slot," he said with a happy tone. Guoqiao laughed, looking very smug. Feng Luo, on the other hand, was much more mature. There was not much pride on his face. Instead, he bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Your Majesty, for giving me a chance to fight that martial arts god spirit alone. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to understand my path as a martial god." The 10-directional martial emperor, Feng Luo. No. He was now the 10-directional martial god, Feng Luo. After he killed the tsunami fist god, Zhao Qingkong, and completely understood his path as a martial god, he used the 81 times promotion energy obtained from killing him to directly advance to the low-tier deity level elementary grade god spirit. He was not far from becoming a low-tier deity intermediate grade god spirit. It was 81 times the promotion energy after all, equivalent to the benefits Feng Luo could obtain from killing 81 low-tier deity level elementary grade god spirits. It was normal for there to be such improvement. Guoqiao was the same. After killing a mid-tier deity-level Scarlet God Spirit alone and helping Vicky, Zhe Wu, and Haras kill the other 2 high-tier deity-level God Spirits, he obtained a huge amount of promotion energy. This allowed his strength to break through continuously from the previous legendary tier. He even crossed a major level and reached the low-tier deity intermediate grade. At this moment, Guoqiao was not far from the low-tier deity level advanced grade. The partial promotion energy of 2 high-tier deity levels and all the promotion energy obtained from killing a mid-tier deity level alone was so terrifying. At the same time, Qi Xiantian and the others, who had helped kill the Scarlet God Spirits, had also obtained huge benefits. Among them, Qi Xiantian had broken through to the legendary tier advanced grade. Actually, he had already obtained enough promotion energy to advance to the low-tier deity level elementary grade. However, he was stuck at this bottleneck and could not break through for the time being because he had yet to comprehend his law skill. Next, Qi Xiantian only needed to comprehend his law skill and walk out of his God Spirit path before he could directly advance to the low-tier deity level elementary grade. Vicky also obtained a large amount of promotion energy. However, the promotion energy he obtained was not enough to advance him to the low-tier deity level intermediate grade, as he only assisted in killing the scarlet god spirits. However, he was not far away. Other than that, Bai Yun and the 100,000 extraordinary tier soldiers had also obtained a lot of benefits. However, perhaps because the promotion energy had been divided equally by the 100,000 extraordinary tier soldiers, Bai Yun had only broken through to the legendary tier advanced grade and had not advanced to the low-tier deity level elementary grade. Zhou Zhou was quite satisfied with this. After this battle, the number of god spirits under his command had increased from 1 Vicky to 3. Moreover, there were still tens of millions of miscellaneous soldiers that had yet to be dealt with. Their strength would definitely increase again after dealing with these miscellaneous soldiers. At that time, 1 or 2 more god spirits might appear. Chapter 7:12 Zhou Zhou's condition. The tempted Heraus. At the same time, Heraus and Zhe Wu also looked at Zhou Zhou's subordinates in surprise. They never expected that the strength of the generals under the King of the Blazing Sun had actually increased so rapidly after just one battle. This did not make sense. The most ridiculous thing was that this alone was nothing. What made them feel the most ridiculous was the situation with Wuxia. Even though he had already recovered the aura of a low-tier deity intermediate grade god spirit, Heraus and Zhe Wu did not forget how he had displayed astonishing performance when he displayed the strength of a high-tier deity level elementary grade god spirit. How did he do it? The two gods were in disbelief. Allowing the strength of a low-tier deity level intermediate grade god spirit to suddenly increase to the high-tier deity level elementary grade. Even the legendary forbidden secret techniques that temporarily increased one's strength probably could not do it, right? As Heraus thought about it, he suddenly remembered the legend of a special race he had heard of in the past. Thinking of that special race, even Heraus, whose personality was gradually recovering, could not help but fall silent. At the same time, he looked at Wuxia with flickering eyes. Zhou Zhou's six senses subtlety quickly discovered Heraus' abnormality. He did not say anything immediately on the surface. He only asked the generals to go to the battlefield to help the soldiers deal with the remaining soldiers of the refined flame Scarlet Legion. Then, he left Heraus and Wuxia behind alone. I wonder why His Majesty asked me to stay. Heraus looked at Zhou Zhou and said. Zhou Zhou looked at him and suddenly smiled faintly. Your Excellency Heraus. You should have sensed Wuxiao's identity, right? He suddenly said. Heraus was stunned. After a moment of silence, he looked at Wuxia and said bitterly, could this be the legendary Dragon Slayer? Haha, that's right. Wuxia laughed and admitted it. His Excellency Heraus indeed knows about the Dragon Slayer. In this era, not many people know about the Dragon Slayer. Zhou Zhou looked at Heraus and said. I only learned about this special race by chance after reading a few ancient books left behind by the ancient gods. It said that the Dragon Slayer race was born in the same cosmic era as the Dragon race. In that era, the Dragon race can be said to be the peak race that reigns supremacy in the myriad worlds. There's even the Dragon Law that's specially named after them among the myriad law Great Tao. In that era, the strength of the Dragon race could be said to be known by all races. Even powerful races like the original Spirit race and the Chaos Gods race sometimes avoid the Dragon race. But such a powerful race was suppressed by a nameless low-level bloodline race. They were even almost slaughtered by that nameless race. That nameless race was originally nameless, but because of this, they were called the Dragon Slayer race by the myriad races. The myriad races only knew afterwards that the power of the Dragon Slayer was not limited to the Dragon race. It's the nemesis of true peak-level bloodline races. Moreover, it can be said to be able to restrain the other races and was completely unreasonable. For this reason, the peak-level bloodline races of the myriad races even joined forces to completely destroy this race. I didn't expect that there are actually still surviving descendants of the Dragon Slayer today. Haras looked at him with a complicated expression. Today, he finally understood why the top bloodline races in the myriad worlds were so afraid of the Dragon Slayer. The Dragon Slayer's strength could actually increase by 2 major realms facing those high-level bloodlines. The legendary tier Dragon Slayer directly had the strength of a mid-tier deity level. This improvement was simply against common sense. Facing life forms with normal bloodlines, the Dragon Slayer's performance was very ordinary and even a little weak. This race was simply specially created by the supreme will to target high-level bloodline races like them. No wonder those high-level bloodline races were still afraid that the Dragon Slayer would make a comeback. Zhou smiled. Haras only knew about Wuxia being a Dragon Slayer. If he knew that all the subjects in the Blazing Sun Kingdom were Dragon Slayers, he did not know how he would react. I also know that Wuxia is a Dragon Slayer and that the Dragon Slayer has a dangerous status in this era. For this reason, I specially reminded Wuxia not to expose his identity as the Dragon Slayer unless it was a special occasion. Today's situation is special. Wuxia was severely injured and on the verge of death, so I asked him to activate the dragon-slaying will. Zhou said. Haras nodded. Then I wonder how Your Excellency Haras plans to resolve this matter. Zhou asked. Your Majesty should have your own plans, right? Haras looked at Zhou and sighed. Indeed I have. Zhou nodded. Then, he looked at Haras and said seriously, I plan to invite you to join our Blazing Sun Kingdom and become a worshipped god spirit of our Blazing Sun Kingdom. I wonder if Your Excellency is willing. Haras smiled, not seeming very surprised. What are the conditions? Your Majesty, do you plan to use this sentence to make me, a high-tier deity level, join your Blazing Sun Kingdom that has just been established a few days ago? You have to know that even old Empire-level Lord factions might not have a high-tier deity level as their worshipped god spirit. He said. I've naturally prepared for the conditions. If Your Excellency is willing to join our Blazing Sun Kingdom, I can provide you with 2 benefits. The first benefit. I will give Your Excellency a high-tier deity-level divine artifact that you can use. A high-tier deity-level divine artifact. Is what you said true? Before Zhou could finish speaking, Haras' breathing quickened and immediately asked Zhou anxiously. Of course. I can give it to you today as long as you agree. Zhou said. It was just a high-tier deity-level divine artifact. Among the few mid-tier deity-level and high-tier deity-level scarlet god spirits who had died today, any mid-tier deity-level divine artifact could be directly upgraded to a high-tier deity-level divine artifact with the help of his King of Lutes. Zhou was also confident that he could take out even true god-tier divine artifacts. Because he remembered that the Legion commander of the Refined Flame Scarlet Legion called Gerard had a rare high-tier deity-level divine artifact. Zhou could possess a true divine artifact in minutes when he extracts his corpse. Okay. I'm willing to join your Blazing Sun Kingdom. Haras agreed without hesitation. He did not even want to hear the second condition. Your Excellency, don't be anxious. As for the second condition. Your Excellency, do you know why the strength of my soldiers increased so quickly? Zhou asked. I'm really curious. Haras' curiosity was indeed aroused. He had long discovered this. He just felt that this was the King of the Blazing Sun's secret, so he didn't ask. Zhou did not waste his breath when he saw this. He pulled out the epic tier blessing of the war god and adjusted it to a mode visible to outsiders. Finally, he showed it to Haras. Haras only took a look before his eyes widened. Even the aura on his body could not help but riot, causing the energy within a radius of more than 10 kilometers to almost be converted into fire element energy. Is this a real Lord talent? Heraus began to doubt his life. Zhou Zhou looked at Wuxia and smiled at the same time. Chapter 713 Heraus joins the Blazing Sun Kingdom. What do you think, Your Excellency? Zhou Zhou asked. I'm willing to join the Blazing Sun Kingdom and become your worshipped god spirit. Heraus took a deep breath and said seriously. Regardless of whether it was in terms of divine artifacts or improving one's strength, Zhou Zhou had given his conditions that he could not refuse. Under such circumstances, he knew that the Blazing Sun Kingdom with the Dragon Slayer was destined to be targeted by the various high-level Lord factions in the future, even though he knew that the Blazing Sun Kingdom was currently in the limelight and that there would definitely be trouble from competitors from all races in the future. He found it difficult to reject this condition. In the end, strength still determined everything in this world. Zhou Zhou had given him a quick passage to the true god tier or even higher realms. Not to mention Heraus, who had an explosive personality. Even other indecisive gods would probably agree in the end. Zhou Zhou smiled and nodded. Then, he silently pulled the other party into the Blazing Sun Kingdom and made him a subject. The moment he became a subject of the Blazing Sun Kingdom, Heraus seemed to have sensed something, and his body trembled slightly. He was a high-tier deity level after all. At his realm, even though he still could not sense the existence of the Lord's law, he could still sense the various Lord talents in the Blazing Sun Kingdom. At that moment, he felt all sorts of strange powers augmenting him. Some of the buffs even made his appearance change. For example, the White Platinum tier Lord talent, beautifulness made him look even better. The White Platinum tier Lord talent, Peach Luck made him feel that his luck with the opposite sex seemed to be a little better. Another example was the Diamond tier Lord talent Connate Spirit Body, and the White Platinum tier Lord talent, Spirit Body 6, which allowed his physique to be optimized to a certain extent. While this optimization didn't add much to him, who was already extremely talented, it could be considered precious. Of course, other than the Epic tier Lord talent, Blessing of the War God, the other Lord talents didn't shock him much. Heraus did not even think that it was the enhancement of his Lord talent. He only thought that it was the enhancement of some special territory buff. Such an effect could be given by some special buildings and treasures. Therefore, he did not expect that this was the comprehensive enhancement brought about by Zhou Zhou's Lord talent. Furthermore, the augmentation of the above buffs was not as shocking as the other buff. And that was, how did I become a Dragon Slayer too? Heraus' expression changed again and again. For a moment, he did not even know what expression to show. He looked at Zhou Zhou with a complicated expression. All subjects who join the Sun Kingdom will automatically become Dragon Slayers. Actually, this is the third hidden benefit of joining the Blazing Sun Kingdom, but I forgot to mention it just now. Zhou Zhou said with a smile. He stopped pretending since he had laid his cards on the table. Heraus, Your Majesty, you forgot it at just the right time, he said bitterly. Previously, he had kept a respectful distance from the Dragon Slayer. Unexpectedly, not only did he enter a thief's den, he had even become one of them. Everything happened too suddenly. For a moment, Heraus did not know what to say. Following that, he took a deep breath. His gaze became resolute, and a smile even appeared on his face. Even though this smile was a little bitter. Looks like I have to study it in the future and kill the living beings of those high-level bloodline races. He sighed. However, there was a hint of hidden excitement in his expression. Zhou Zhou saw his performance and couldn't help but laugh inwardly. Heraus was a warlike person to begin with. Now that he borrowed the other party's divine artifacts and the support of the Dragon Slayer, the other party would probably use the advancement method of the Dragon Slayer as an excuse to make him take the initiative to fight against the powerful enemies of those high-level bloodline races. Then, Zhou saw Heraus close his eyes and begin to sense the uniqueness brought to him by the Dragon Slayer. Ignore the bloodline suppression brought by those with higher bloodlines. Moreover, the stronger the bloodline pressure, the greater the difference in bloodline between the two sides, and the higher the strength that erupts until the body can't withstand the enhancement strength. Moreover, as a Dragon Slayer, after slaughtering high-level bloodlines, I can bathe in the enemy's blood to recover my injuries and increase my strength. This increase is not limited by my potential. The higher the level of the enemy's bloodline, the faster my injuries will recover, and the more my strength will increase. Is this the advantage of being a Dragon Slayer? It's indeed blessed by the heavens. As expected of the Dragon Slayer race that is famous for stepping on the corpses of dragons, Heraus muttered to himself excitedly. Zhou couldn't help but smile when he saw him like this. At this moment, Heraus suddenly frowned slightly. Then, he looked up at Zhou. Your Majesty, as a high-tier deity level, my potential is actually a true god-tier elementary grade. If the source of the Dragon Slayer's explosive strength lies in the difference in bloodline level with the other party, then wouldn't I not be able to unleash a very high additional strength like Wuxia? He asked. Zhou nodded. You're right. With your current bloodline, you can hide it. I'm afraid only a life form at the Master God tier bloodline level can allow you to unleash strength that exceeds the high tier deity level. He said. This was also one of the weaknesses of a Dragon Slayer. However, it was not a big flaw. Having high potential was not a bad thing after all. Wuxia was too special. His potential could be said to be the lowest in the entire Blazing Sun Kingdom. Only white silver tier intermediate grade. In fact, his potential would only be at the green bronze tier intermediate grade without the Sun Moon Star Sword to increase his potential. However, as the saying went, fortune and misfortune depended on each other. It was precisely because his bloodline level was so low. Therefore, when he faced a high-level bloodline, because of the huge difference in bloodline level, he could erupt with such shocking strength. From this point of view, Zhou was even inferior to him. When he heard Heraus' words, he felt that it was a pity for him. What was a pity for he was that the other party was not human. Otherwise, with the support of the sword of Xian Yuan, Sun Moon Star Sword, his potential could completely reach the level of a Master God tier. It was not his current true God tier elementary grade potential. On the other side, Heraus nodded even though he felt that it was a pity, he did not pay much attention to it. The song in Bloodbath alone and ignoring the enemy's bloodline pressure was enough for him to benefit greatly. As for the additional burst of strength, naturally, it would be best if there was. If there wasn't, he could only console him that it was because he was too outstanding that he had such an outcome. Your Majesty, what about my high-tier deity-level divine artifact? Heraus, who had straightened out his identity and faction, did not stand on ceremony and directly asked Zhou for what he wanted. Come to my place tonight. Zhou said. Heraus nodded excitedly. I, a high-tier deity level, can finally have a high-tier deity-level divine artifact that matches my own strength. He was extremely excited. Heraus did not stay any longer and ran to the battlefield below to help the soldiers deal with the remaining soldiers of the refined flame Scarlet Legion. Wuxiao did not say anything else and went to help. Zhou looked at Guoqiao's back and glanced at a law skill in his skill column. Chapter 714 Dragon Slaying Power. Scarlet Beheader. Ranking. Law Skill Name, Dragon Slaying Power, Law Skill Quality, Low-Level Deity Tier Elementary Grade, Introduction, the exclusive law skill of the Dragon Slayer. When the Dragon Slayer kills high-level blood creatures and bathes in its blood while advancing to the God Spirit, he will automatically master the exclusive law skill. When the Dragon Slayer fights with high-level blood creatures, it will automatically activate upon the body, weapon, armor, kills, etc. and increase their lethality towards these creatures with high-level bloodline. The Dragon Slayer actually has a shortcut to becoming a god. A Dragon Slayer god spirit? Zhou nodded. It seemed that he had another path to becoming a god in the future. Moreover, this path was quite easy. He only needed to slaughter high-level bloodline creatures and bathe in their blood. Moreover, this path to godhood was not weak. It was just targeted. Then, he looked at the notification that had appeared before, but he had yet to read it. King of 10,000 Kings event hint, you have led your territory soldiers to kill Gerard, the Legion commander of the Refined Flame Scarlet Legion, high-tier deity level intermediate grade, a beginner Scarlet Empire. You have made outstanding contributions to this King of 10,000 Kings event. You are rewarded with 1 bottle of potential advancement potion, high-tier deity level intermediate grade, 1 book of the God Spirit, high-tier deity level intermediate grade, 100 divine crystals, high-tier deity level intermediate grade, 1 random special building blueprint. King of 10,000 Kings event hint, you have obtained the achievement Scarlet Beheader, high-tier deity level. Scarlet Beheader, high-tier deity level worth 50 Universal General Faction points. Good God! A bottle of high-tier deity level intermediate advancement potion and a high-tier deity level intermediate book of the God Spirit, this is a God Ascension package. Moreover, it has an extremely high upper limit. Zhou's eyes lit up. This round of killing was not a loss. It was not in vain that he had spent so much time and energy and used up another ghost god demon slaying halberd. Not bad, not bad. In addition, the Scarlet Beheader achievement obtained from killing Gerard was also worth a total of 50 million faction points. One had to know that the legendary advanced grade faction quests given to him by the Night Empire would only reward him with 100 million faction points after completing the entire set. This Scarlet Beheader achievement gave him half of the faction quests points as a reward. Indeed, anyone who only does the faction quests has no future. If I want to surpass those top lords in this King of 10,000 Kings event, I have to take a shortcut and overtake them. It was not in vain that I specially went to the illusory life race to obtain the Bodhi Supreme, the Eye of the Heavens Anger, and other treasures left behind by the illusory life race. Zhou nodded in satisfaction. When it was dark, his soldiers finally killed the remaining 80 million scarlet fog monsters. This battle had benefited his army greatly. Among them, the Blazing Sun army was upgraded to a Diamond Tier army, the Dragon God army, Monster army, and Heavenly Map army had all been upgraded to the White Platinum Tier army. The Diamond Tier Braveness buff directly increased the overall strength of the Blazing Sun Army's soldiers by 60%. The White Platinum Tier Army's Braveness buff also increased the overall strength of the Blazing Sun Army's soldiers by 50%. The improvement was not small. It was already late, but Zhou had no intention of leaving. He got all the soldiers to activate the black membrane. Then, he got some soldiers to kill the new fog monsters around them while letting the other soldiers continue to extract the loots. Zhou nodded in satisfaction seeing the soldiers covered in black membrane and diligently extracting their loots in the fog. This Dark Walker was very convenient to use. In the future, the Knight would not be able to stop his expansion. Then, Zhou took this opportunity to open the rankings. First was the Night Empire Faction Points ranking. Night Empire Faction Points rankings, first place, Blazing Sun Kingdom, Lord of the Blazing Sun, 71, 1 million faction points. Second place, Green Phoenix City, Green Phoenix Lord, 1,564,000 faction points. Third place, Spiritual Medicine City, Spiritual Medicine Lord, 1,128,000 faction points. Fourth place, Paper Immortal City, Paper Immortal Lord, 603,100 faction points. Zhou nodded slightly. 50 million faction points was indeed not for show, it directly widened the gap between him and the second place by 2 digits. The other people in the Night Empire who were doing faction quests were probably stunned when they saw the difference in faction points. He casually opened the camp channel of the Night Empire. As he had expected, these lords of the Night faction were all shocked at where he had suddenly obtained so many faction points. Then, he looked at the requirements of the Night Empire faction quests. Legendary Tier Advanced Grade Spatial Teleportation Array, April 12, 26 Epic Tier Advanced Grade Spatial Teleportation Arrays, December 26, 114 Extraordinary Tier Advanced Grade Spatial Teleportation Arrays, 111/114, today is the 4th day, and I've completed almost half of the mission requirements. Even though the remaining spatial teleportation arrays are small and exquisite, with my current strength, it shouldn't be difficult to resolve them in 2 days as long as nothing unexpected happens. Zhou thought. Then, he looked at the Elven Empire's faction points ranking. Elven Empire faction points ranking, 1st place, Blazing Sun Kingdom, Lord of the Blazing Sun, 50 million faction points. 2nd place, Light God City, Light Envoy Lord, 5,126,000 faction points. 3rd place, Windfire City, Sky Lord, 4,882,000 faction points. 4th place, Winterfrost, Lord of Winterfrost, 4,060,000 faction points. I've never done faction quests in the Elven Empire, let alone obtained any faction points. Now, I've directly relied on 50 million faction points to reach the top of the faction. Looks like this is the effect of the Universal General faction points. It can be used anywhere. In other words, faction points that can be used in all faction rankings. A smile appeared on Zhou's face. From the looks of it, the Universal General faction points were much more useful than the faction points of a single faction. In particular, the more factions he joined, the more useful the Universal General faction points would be. He didn't think too much about it and looked at the most important Lord faction points ranking. Myriad Races Lord faction points ranking, 1st place, Original Spirit Race, True Lord, 286 million faction points. 2nd place, Shepherd's God Race, Heaven Chasing Lord, 410,009,000 faction points. 3rd place, Chaos Gods Race, Great One Lord, 92,002,000 faction points. 4th place, Human Race, Lord of the Blazing Sun, 71.1 million faction points. 5th place, Myriad Spirit Clan, Spiritual Lord, 51,606,000 faction points. Zhou looked at the rankings with a solemn expression. This top-notch lord of the top 3 races was actually so strong. He already obtained an additional 50 million faction points, but he was only ranked 4th. Especially the True Lord. He actually had a total of 286 million faction points. How did he do it? Zhou was puzzled. Just as he was feeling puzzled, the human lords of Cerulean Planet and the top lords of the myriad races also saw the increase in the Lord of the Blazing Sun's faction points. A question appeared in their minds as well. How did King of the Blazing Sun do it? Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 7:15 The Shock of a Top Lord of the 10,000 Races Primal Chaos City. Mutated beast life forms emitting a black-gray chaotic aura gathered here. The one in charge was a strange black bird with 3 legs. He stood tall in the sky, his body emitting chaotic flames as he ruled over this ancient and majestic city. King of the Blazing Sun, suddenly increased by 50 million faction points. Has he also completed a top-notch faction quest? The mystic bird life form, which was the Great One Lord, pondered. As a lord from a top-notch race civilization, the advantage he had in accepting faction quests was unimaginable for other normal lords. It was a top-notch faction quest that other lords could only obtain by pulling strings. All he needed to do was say that he was from the Chaos God's race, and countless rulers of empires would take the initiative to build connections with him. They would hand the faction quests of their own countries to him, and they would even take the initiative to request for help in order to help him complete the mission. In order to avoid violating the agreement, they would not take the initiative to send troops to help complete their faction quests. However, giving more hints and intelligence support to make it easier for officials at various levels to complete the faction quests was allowed in the Supreme Agreement. And now, there were a total of 5 top-notch faction quests in his mission list. If he could complete each faction quest, he would be able to obtain at least 50 to 200 million faction points. This was only because the Great One Lord knew that the King of 10,000 Kings' activity time was limited. Even if he could receive a large number of top-notch faction quests, he could not complete all of them. Therefore, he chose these 5 top-notch faction quests that he felt he could complete in a short period of time among all the many top-notch faction quests. Otherwise, there would only be more. This Lord of the Blazing Sun clearly came from an ordinary human. But he actually completed a top-notch faction quest in just 4 days. The Great One Lord was silent. The Great One Lord had always been very unconvinced that the Lord of the Blazing Sun could obtain the achievement of the strongest Lord of all races in the previous Myriad Races Lord Battlefield event. Even though it was rumored that the other party had repelled the true Lord, the Great One Lord did not believe it to be true. How powerful was the true Lord? He knew very well as someone who had fought with the other party before. He did not believe that a mere human lord could defeat a Great One Lord. It must be because of some special reason that the Great One Lord gave up fighting with the other party. That was why the other party picked up a huge bargain. If he had met him on the final battlefield, he would definitely have made this human lord reveal his true colors and let him know what the foundation of a race from a great race civilization was. That was what the Great One Lord thought. Right now, the gap between me and this lucky Lord of the Blazing Sun isn't that big anymore. Looks like I have to hurry up and complete a top-notch faction quest to stabilize my ranking. As for the Cloud Mulberry world, I can only go there in the future. The Great One Lord frowned. He had an arrogant personality. It was barely enough to allow the true Lord and Lord Mu to be ranked above him. However, if a human lord that he looked down on was above him, then he would be extremely unhappy. As for the Cloud Mulberry world, it was an opportunity he had found from the inheritance of his own race. If he could obtain a remnant branch of the Mulberry Divine Tree in the Mulberry Cloud world, he could use the inheritance in his mind to create his own intrinsic growth divine artifact. That would be a huge improvement for him. The True Kingdom. In the original King's City. This was a kingdom established by the true Lord of the original spirit race. Coincidentally, the time difference between he and Zhou's establishment of the kingdom was only about half a day. However, it was this half a day that made the latter famous in the entire High Continent and even among all the lords of the myriad races. The former was still unknown until now. Other than the nearby lords who knew that this true lord had also established a kingdom, the other lords only knew about the Blazing Sun kingdom and not the true kingdom. The true lord once felt that it was a pity. However, if he was slow, he was slow. Even if there was only a difference of half a day, it could not change this fact. Therefore, the true lord stopped thinking about the king of the Blazing Sun and his Blazing Sun kingdom. Until the Lord of the Blazing Sun's explosive increase of 50 million faction points had raised his ranking from over 10 to 4th place. He had almost entered the top 3 before he attracted the true Lord's attention again. The Lord of the Blazing Sun, the true Lord looked at the name Lord of the Blazing Sun thoughtfully. He originally thought that this Lord from the human race would be at his limit if he could obtain first place in the previous Lord's event. Originally, he had planned to forget the unpleasant experience from before. He did not expect that this magical human lord actually showed signs of rising again in this event. Interesting. The King of 10,000 Kings event this time is different from last time. During the previous Myriad Races Lord Battlefield event, even the top lords of the Myriad Races had no choice but to follow the rules of the Supreme Will and fight one-on-one in that illusory arena. Most of the advantages of the top lord's race reputation were not displayed. And in this King of 10,000 Kings event, the lords of the top races can use the reputation of the races behind them to obtain a large number of benefits from the outside world. Under such circumstances, this human lord actually caught up. Surprise flashed across the true lord's eyes. It had to be said. This lord of the blazing sun surprised him too much. Then, he watched for a while before closing the rankings. It was only the 4th day of the King of 10,000 Kings event. There were still a total of 26 days until the end of this event. This improvement was nothing to him, a lord who had obtained nearly 300 million faction points in 4 days. This time, he was full of confidence to be able to obtain first place in this King of 10,000 Kings event. What happened during the last event definitely wouldn't happen to him again. Heaven-chasing city. Lord Mu looked at the Blazing Sun King's ranking with a dark expression. He actually caught up again, he muttered to himself. His voice was a little cold. He had never forgotten the experience of being defeated by King of the Blazing Sun soldiers with the greedy wolf Howling Moon array on the battlefield of lords of all races. In fact, when he thought about it, it was still vivid in his mind, as if it had happened yesterday. He was also a person who was unwilling to admit defeat. Hence, up until now, he had always had the thought of getting back at him. Don't let me find you in reality. Otherwise, I will let you know where the shepherd's god race's true strength lies. The heaven-chasing lord said softly. At the same time, just as these top-notch people of foreign races lords were shocked and afraid of Zhou Zhou's huge improvement, the lords of Cerulean Planet's world channel were also in an uproar. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.